The rapper accused of stealing more than $1 million through unemployment fraud and bragging about it in a music video has agreed to take a plea deal.
It's Fyre Festival, and this thing was a complete disaster.
It's no secret that the rap game has seen its fair share of scams. However, the culture of finessing people out of their money isn't just a side hustle for some rappers. In fact, it becomes their entire business model. My name is Rashad Bashir, and this is rap's most corrupt scams. Starting off with one of the biggest scams in rap history. I'm talking about, of course, the infamous Fyre Festival. And at the center of it all was 4-time Grammy Award nominated rapper Ja Rule. But first, let me set the stage for you. Imagine an exclusive festival on a private island, marketed as the ultimate luxury experience.
My agency contacted me and was like, hey, there's this new festival coming up. It's really exclusive.
Imagine the gourmet meals, glamorous villas, and a lineup of top-tier performers. On top of that, it had sleek promotions and celebrity endorsements. In other words, Fyre Festival was poised to be the event of the decade.
Ever seen.
Exclusivity with unbelievable access to premier talent.
Biggest event in a decade, I promise you. I'll be there. The biggest event in a decade, I promise you. I'll be there.
This was all planned out by the brilliant minds of entrepreneur Billy McFarland and rapper Ja Rule. Together, they created a vision so grand that it captivated thousands of partygoers and rap fans. And with Ja Rule at the helm, the festival was set to become bigger than Coachella. However, what happened behind the scenes was very different.
Fyre Festival, and this thing was a complete disaster.
So what exactly happened? Well, Fyre Festival wasn't born out of a love for music or luxury. Initially, it was a marketing ploy to promote Fyre Media, an app designed to streamline celebrity bookings. Billy McFarland, the festival's mastermind, envisioned the event as a launch party for his app.
Billy thought that he was going to be Mark Zuckerberg and that he was on the road to be Mark Zuckerberg and that nothing would stop him.
However, if we actually look at McFarland's background, it wasn't really that great. See, his past ventures also failed. Back in 2013, he also founded Magnizes, which is a black card membership service for millennials that promised exclusive perks and events.
What is Magnizes? It's a card, but it's more than that.
It's a card, it's more than that. So we take everybody who has a card and create a lot of great networking opportunities. And second is we're partners with local merchants, so fashion stores, restaurants, gyms.
The idea was appealing, but the execution was a complete disaster. According to customers, the card was filled with unauthorized charges, and on top of that, it looked like the perks were nothing but a scam. So by 2016, he finally turned his focus to Fyre Media. And to make the Fyre Fest app successful, he knew he had to do something big. And that idea came when they visited Norman Cay. However, this wasn't just a simple island. The island was once owned by the infamous drug lord Pablo Escobar of the Medellin cartel. But what McFarland saw was a tropical paradise, which was the perfect place for the biggest and most luxurious party known to man. And for some reason, he became obsessed with creating an exclusive music festival there. And with Ja Rule's connection, he thought that he would be able to invite the biggest stars on earth. And guess what? To sell the event, the two even made a guest appearance at one of the biggest tech conferences in the world, the 2016 Web Summit.
We are here at the Web Summit. Well, I'm gonna let my partner in crime here, Billy McFarland, give y'all an introduction of what Fyre is.
In this conference, industry professionals, investors, and tech enthusiasts learn about the latest in technology and innovation. And here, they explain what they were working on.
So Gunna asked for $1,000, and they said, I'll get you Ja Rule. So I gave Gunna $1,000. And Gunna called me a week later saying, Ja Rule hates your offer.
According to the two, Fyre would help eliminate the disgusting practices in bookings.
So one of the problems that we're really tackling is the nasty business of booking.
And that's where Fyre Festival came to life. So how did he market his new app? Well, you have to credit him since he actually broke the internet with his tactics. In late 2016, an orange square dominated social media feeds worldwide. See, this was posted simultaneously by the most followed influencers and celebrities, including Kendall Jenner, Bella Hadid, and Emily Ratajkowski. The cryptic image generated over 300 million impressions within 24 hours. You're probably wondering, what exactly is this orange square? Well, it was basically a teaser for the most exclusive music festival ever. Unfortunately, this campaign turned out to be another scam since it gave the illusion that attendees would party alongside these celebrities.
The most insane festival the world has ever seen. I mean, everyone's supposed to be here, like Bella Hadid, Kendall Jenner.
All these models, like, in the Bahamas.
See, in reality, none of the stars planned to attend. They were paid for their post, with Kendall Jenner reportedly earning $275,000 for a single Instagram post. On top of the promised celebrities, the festival also offered packages of promising private villas, personal chefs, and VIP access. But behind the scenes, the festival was lacking money. With just months until the event, McFarland hadn't paid the artists scheduled to perform, causing major artists to pull out. For instance, Blink-182, one of the headlining acts, had pulled out last minute. The band tweeted, "Regrettably, and after much careful and difficult consideration, we want to let you know that we won't be performing at Fyre Fest in the Bahamas this weekend and next weekend. We're not confident that we would have what we need to give you the quality performances we always give our fans." Worse, the festival site was nowhere near ready since the venue was a logistical nightmare. So instead of the promised villas, all they got was disaster relief tents. On the other hand, the island's sandy beaches were swapped for a rocky construction site. See, Billy was able to lease the island on one condition. He couldn't use Escobar's name in any marketing materials. But of course, McFarland ignored this condition. Just take a look at this ad for the event.
On a deserted island owned by Pablo Escobar.
This was Pablo Escobar's island 25 years ago. So we're taking the dream for your average person in America or wherever they are and saying for 3 days you could become Pablo Escobar.
And when the island's owners saw this, they immediately canceled the lease, which forced the festival to relocate to an unfinished resort development on Great Exuma. However, this location was far worse than the expected island. See, the venue lacked infrastructure. It didn't even have running water, and as it would turn out, the capacity to host any large-scale event was laughable. Basically, this island was far from being the greatest music festival. However, despite the mounting logistical issues, Billy was desperate and still decided to move forward. But the reality was the venue was far from finished. On the other hand, tickets were selling out like wildfire since people didn't really know the chaos happening inside Billy's camp. Tickets ranging from $500 to over $100,000 were being sold. But still, according to experts, the festival would cost around $42 million or more. So how was Billy gonna afford this? Well, even if they had sold all the $100,000 tickets, it still wouldn't suffice. However, at that point, there was no backing out for him, as he had already promised thousands of people an exclusive getaway concert. And as the festival date approached, a lot of people began to worry. They were way behind deadlines, they lacked payments, and the ticket sales clearly wouldn't cover the cost of organizing such a large festival.
We were a month and a half out. I don't know how they thought that we were gonna be able to do that.
To do a proper music festival, I would say you should try to start the design and the fundraising and everything at least 12 months out.
So how did Billy McFarland play this off? You see, Billy had a knack for looking the part. He flew private, drove luxury cars, and promised potential investors that his company, Fyre Media, was raking in millions. But the reality, Fyre Media had completed just 60 bookings and earned a measly $55,000. So to fill the gap between his image and the truth, Billy lied about everything, from bank statements to revenue reports, and even loans from 2 separate banks. And it looked like this wasn't the first scam Billy pulled off. Between 2016 and 2017, he conned investors out of $26 million, all to fund his lifestyle and the upcoming Fyre Festival. But Billy ran into a problem. He needed more money. So to further gain funds, Billy had to think of a new tactic quickly, and that's when the Fyre band scam was born. Billy pitched festival attendees on an exclusive payment system in an email. These wristbands would supposedly allow guests to pay for premium expenses like food, drinks, and festival merchandise on site. But guess what he didn't tell them? None of those things existed. However, once again, the scam still worked as people kept buying them. Attendees who were eager to live out the promised luxury loaded up their Fyre bands with thousands of dollars. But unfortunately for them, there was nothing to buy. Meanwhile, ticket holders were left in the dark. There were no updates on accommodation, flights, or even when the festival would be held. Please share photos of the living situation. Need to know what we need to bring since it's tent living, one attendee asked. We haven't been getting up-to-date information or either Fyre bookings or Fyre Festival, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to answer DM, comments, and Facebook messages, asked another worried ticket holder. On top of that, when questions flooded social media, the Fyre team stopped responding, deleting comments and eventually disabling comments entirely. The silence only fueled suspicion, leading some attendees to investigate further. One particularly damning discovery was a series of leaked photos showing the festival's true state. These images went viral, exposing the festival as a far cry from the glamorous paradise it had promised. There's even a Twitter account dedicated to exposing the event. A private plane to a private island, Great Exuma is in a private island, hashtag Fyre Festival, you're lying to everyone, just stop and return the money. And with only a few days before the event, this added immense stress and pressure. Mark Weinstein, one of the music festival's consultants, sent an email to the team that they had to cancel more bookings. Weinstein would explain what happened at the time in an interview with Mr. Obnoxious, saying,
"Finally, I had convinced them to cancel some of the influencers who had been promised free accommodations for posting that little orange square on their Instagram accounts."
To him, it was clear that there wasn't the budget for all the promises, and that's why he advised them to cancel more guests.
And we were promised a villa by the beach, me and 2 guests. And so that's when I realized, like, we had about 200 of these people who were all promised a 3-person villa on the beach, and those just didn't exist.
But instead of facing reality, Billy replied, "At least they'll see your smiling face and yoga skills." I don't know why he said that.
So it's one thing to try to find solutions to problems. It's another thing to not take advice of the people that you hired around you because they have the experience that you don't.
Now, here's when things started to get wild. Amid the financial disaster and logistical problems, one particularly bizarre incident unfolded involving Andy King, a senior team member who had a big task ahead of him to keep the festival afloat. You see, the festival faced another issue with the Bahamas customs seizing a critical shipment of drinking water, and the customs officials demanded $175,000 in cash for the release of the shipment. And as we all know, the festival was basically broke.
Missed the big meeting with Customs, and of course Customs had said to Billy and the gang, you need to pay us $175,000 in cash today for us to release the water.
Desperate for solutions, King was offered to be the sacrificial lamb.
I went down. Well, Billy called me. I'm going to speak completely, this won't go that far, I'm sure, but Billy called and said, Andy, we need you to take one big thing for the team.
In his head, he was thinking,
He said, oh my gosh, I've been taking something for the team every day.
Haven't got a clue on what Andy would be doing.
He said, well, you're our wonderful gay leader, and we need you to go down. Will you suck to fix this water problem?
He was shocked, and rightfully so. When King pressed for details, the response was even more startling. He was told to meet with the head of Bahamas Customs, Cunningham, and perform a deeply personal and intimate favor in exchange for the water shipment.
And I said, Billy, what? He said, Andy, if you will go down and suck Cunningham's dick, the head of Customs, and get him to clear all of the containers with water, you will save this festival.
If you were in his place, what would you have done?
And I literally drove home, took a shower, I drank some mouthwash. I'm like, oh my gosh, and I got into my car to drive across the island to take one for the team.
Fortunately for Andy, the head of Customs spared him, because according to him, he was willing to do anything to save the festival.
Can you imagine in my 30 years of a career that this is what I was going to do? I was going to do that.
Although this surreal incident ended on a surprisingly light note.
What happened?
I didn't have to do it.
No.
I got down there. He was the nicest guy. He's like, Andy, I like you. I'm like, oh God, where's this conversation going?
Behind the scenes, chaos continued to unfold. The event was just one day away. You would think that luck would eventually turn, but the day before the festival, the island was hit with a huge storm which caused tents to be damaged and flooded. And of course, all the work needed to be stopped for their safety. However, as attendees were excited to be on their way, their promised private jets turned out to be repurposed commercial planes. Guests described it as worse than low-budget economy class with broken windows and unsettling conditions, stating,
It's actually worse than really being low economy class.
A mix of the good news about this plane. If we want to leave, we can just take the window off and we can just head out.
Upon landing, attendees were guided onto repurposed school buses and taken to a beach bar, where they were left to drink and dance for hours. But what they didn't know was that the organizers were just stalling for time as they tried to hide the disaster waiting at the campsite. And as their festival goers saw their disaster relief tents, it became clear that Fyre Festival was not just poorly planned, it was a full-blown crisis. See, they were stranded on the island with no shelter, food, or water, so there was nothing left to do but go on social media. Videos posted labeled the event as #dumpsterfire. The attendees eventually needed to go in their respective accommodation, but as we all know, that didn't exist. And they began to see what kind of disastrous event they caught themselves in.
Turn this bus right around.
We didn't have enough drivers, we didn't have enough houses, we didn't have enough beds, we didn't have enough site, we didn't have enough staff. It was just, we were overwhelmed.
They were surprised to see that the promised villas were non-existent.
It's never happening again. I hope they know that.
More and more people started to worry since it was almost dark out, and they still hadn't gotten in their villas. And one of those people was basketball YouTuber Austin Mills. In his Fyre Festival vlog, you can clearly see McFarland trying to organize things.
We're in trouble. No one can get in the rooms. No one can get their bags. We've been here for hours. The sun is going down. The sun's going down. The sun is really going down. It's about to be pitch black out here. People are panicking.
The result, people scrambled to claim tents and mattresses in a chaotic free-for-all.
We told them it was our room and to get out, and they said pretty much when they check in, they're just telling everyone it's a free-for-all to just find an empty tent and grab it. So.
To make things worse, items were misplaced or outright stolen. It was a disaster.
None of us know what to do now. It's getting late. Someone took our room. They told us that it was a free-for-all. So we have nowhere to stay. Nowhere to stay. Some people are missing bags. We're just trying to get our bags. Pitch black out. There's trucks, craziness going on everywhere. Nobody knows what to do.
And what's confusing is that even the Fyre Festival staff didn't seem to know what to do.
Talked to like 5 different people that work for Fyre Festival about trying to get a flight out of this place. And no one knows what to do.
Vandalism spread like wildfire. Guests poked holes in others' tents, looted supplies, and tore apart the festival grounds in frustration. It was too much for everybody. Now, you got to wonder what Billy was doing at that moment. Well, according to reports, Billy was seen crying.
Tears in his eyes, but that was the first time that any of us had seen that. Through thick and thin, he stayed so positive, and it wasn't until that day that things started to crumble.
However, the attendees that day were only 1/3 of what was coming. Now, can you imagine what would happen if the crowd tripled in size? So it was clear that the festival had no chance of recovering, but still, Billy couldn't see it that way. So the staff went against his orders. Organizers announced that the festival was postponed. According to the statement posted on their website, due to circumstances out of our control, the physical infrastructure was not in place on time and we were unable to fulfill on that vision safely and enjoyably for our guests. At this time, we were working tirelessly to get flights scheduled and get everyone off Great Exuma and home safely and as quickly as we can. And guess what? Billy finally started to feel the heat, but instead of taking the blame, he went out and blamed the weather.
Big storm came through and busted our water system and affected half of the housing tents. We took a big jump here and a big risk, and V1 has failed.
But finally, Fyre Festival was done.
Fyre Festival is officially canceled. We just got the news, guys.
Officially?
Is it really? That's what Mick said. Apparently there's no food on the island. They're not letting people in. People who just landed here have to go back to Miami.
For those unlucky enough to make it to the island, things were about to get much worse, especially when it came to the food. See, what the attendees didn't know at the time was that the food budget had been slashed from $6 million to just $1 million. A sad viral image of a styrofoam container holding a soggy cheese sandwich became the enduring symbol of the scam. The dinner that at Fyre Festival promised us was catered by Steven Starr is literally bread, cheese, and salad with dressing. #Fyre Festival. For 48 hours, this infamous sandwich dominated social media, turning Fyre Festival into an international laughingstock.
New details that we're learning this morning about that epic Fyre music festival.
Going viral with the hashtag dumpster fire. A luxury getaway quickly spiraling into chaos.
And organizers released a statement saying, "We thought we were ready, but then everyone arrived."
Different memes flooded the internet, and Ja Rule wasn't safe from any of it either.
And also, Ja Rule is gonna be there. Of course I'm gonna be there. Who am I not to be there?
This is Ja Rule in his comfort zone, and this is Ja Rule outside of his comfort zone.
But the sandwich was only the beginning. When festival organizers realized the scale of the disaster, they tried to evacuate attendees as quickly as possible. However, this was more complicated than they thought. See, the festival was held on Exuma, a small island with a limited number of flights, and as a result, the attendees were stranded at the airport with no food, no water, and no clear way to get home.
Okay, how long till water comes? And food.
When do we get our money back?
Unfortunately, the event was turning out to be a nightmare, with some attendees fainting from distress and dehydration, while others, still intoxicated from the festival's open bar, became increasingly agitated. It felt like a hostage situation. Fortunately, just hours later, the fire team finally arranged the flights to ferry people back to the US, and the nightmare ended as attendees touched down in their own homes.
Made it. Success.
America.
We are alive.
Come on.
None of us passed out.
In the end, the attendees got home with a huge relief on their faces. The question now is, what would happen to McFarland? Surely there would be consequences, right? Well, not even a month after the Fyre Festival fiasco, lawsuits flooded in, and McFarland's fraudulent moves came to light. A class action suit demanded a whopping $100 million in damages, with attendees comparing their experience to sci-fi dystopian survival movies like The Hunger Games.
Attorney Ben Misalis doesn't think it's funny. He's filed a $100 million class action lawsuit against the organizers.
2 attendees were awarded $5 million in damage, while another 277 received a $2 million settlement. However, it seemed like bad luck followed them because according to court papers, they're set to receive just $281 each due to legal fees. Billy McFarland, however, faced far more serious consequences. Investigators revealed that he had scammed investors out of $26 million by lying about financial statements, sponsorships, and insurance. And you'd think he'd stop scamming people by that time, but even while awaiting trial, he started another scam business, NYC VIP Access. However, in October of 2018, Billy's judgment day finally came and he was sentenced to 6 years in prison and ordered to pay $26,191,303. On the other hand, even the influencers that promoted the event weren't safe. For instance, Kendall Jenner faced lawsuits and she ended up paying $90,000 to settle. In an interview, she would speak about this incident, explaining that in these types of promotions, you never really know what's going to happen. She added that it's always risky to partner with a starting brand. I definitely do as much research as I can, but sometimes there isn't enough research you can do because it's a starting brand and you kind of have to have faith in it and hope it'll work out the way people say it will. But for the locals of the Bahamas, the financial and emotional problems also took a toll on them. Even though Ja Rule would eventually claim that a lot of people got paid.
People got paid. Artists got paid. Festival organizers got paid. Yeah. You know, a lot of people got paid a lot of money, and a lot of that money, you know, I'm gonna say it was just stolen, yo.
The locals would definitely disagree. Just take a look at Marianne Rawls' story, owner of the Exuma Point Bar and Grill restaurant. She revealed that she paid workers out of her own pocket, losing $50,000 in the process.
Fyre Festival was a disaster. I was there preparing hundreds and hundreds of meals and I was not able to be paid. Out of savings, I'm sure I've spent more than $50,000 in bills that I am still trying to, overcome at this time.
Fortunately, a GoFundMe campaign eventually raised around $240,000 to help her and other locals recover. On the other hand, it wasn't just restaurant owners who were scammed. Take Daryl Thorne, an artist and performer who had been hired to contribute to Fyre Festival's entertainment lineup. He invested months of work creating intricate costumes and headpieces, shipping many of them off to the Bahamas.
I worked on it for probably 2 months. I made 12 new headpieces and I shipped 36 to the Bahamas. So these 3 here are actually left over from Fyre Festival.
Thorne even said that he had to turn down 3 other lucrative opportunities to commit to Fyre Festival. Little did he know, it would cost him dearly. Upon arriving at the festival, Thorne was met with chaos.
We get off the plane. I don't want to say a war zone because that's what people were saying. I thought, oh, you namby-pambies.
He was forced to track down and recover his possessions.
I'm walking around all the grounds trying to find my costumes. Everything had been seized because the Fyre Festival hadn't paid anybody anything. I had to stay about 8 days in order to finally get my costumes back, find shipping to get them off of the island.
Even after returning home, he was still owed about $24,000. Unfortunately, the local Bahamian workers arguably were the ones that were hit the hardest during the scam. These workers provided essential services like transportation, catering, and infrastructure for a festival that promised to boost their local economy. Instead, they were collectively owed over $100,000. According to Eczema's Chamber of Commerce, Pedro Roll, pursuing legal action against Fyre's organizers wasn't feasible for many of these locals. I don't think there's going to be any monies left to distribute at the end of it all, he said in an interview. Litigation from a foreign country is very expensive, and even if they did attempt it, there was no guarantee of reimbursement. I don't think there's any expectation at this point that anything's going to happen, and the locals' losses were written off as collateral damage in one of the music industry's most notorious scams. They've accepted it and moved on. So you think that prison would mark the end of Billy McFarland's schemes, but not for him.
Hey guys, it's Billy McFarland. As you might know, I effed around. And because of that, I definitely found out.
Upon his release in March of 2022, he immediately began planning his next venture.
You might have guessed, but I'm working on something new. This time, it's a little crazier, but a whole lot bigger. Anything I've ever tried before.
Billy's plan to regain his image was to put his face out there as fast as possible by appearing in news, podcasts, and other different interviews.
I messed up, and I was so driven by this desperate desire to prove people right.
He spent years in jail not thinking of his actions, but rather to start a new business called PYRT.
What I need to do when I get out, or this is plans that I have to start when I get out?
Yeah, so working on a company now. It's called Pirate. Put it together during
So this is the new game plan.
Yeah. Pirate.
All right, let's fucking hear it.
PYRT was supposed to be like a treasure hunt, and Billy would make a TV show out of it. But can you guess the location of the show? The Bahamas.
When I go back to the Bahamas for the first time, I don't know what's gonna happen. I have to ask permission to go, but I'd love for you guys to be there to capture the content and be the first ones to return boots in the ground.
Unfortunately for Billy, the public wasn't happy with his new venture, and he obviously wasn't welcome there anymore. In a statement released by the government of the Bahamas, it said, "The government of the Bahamas will not endorse or approve any event in the Bahamas associated with him. He is considered to be a fugitive, with several pending complaints against him with the Royal Bahamas Police Force. So he just got out of prison, and now he wants back in again? Anyone knowing of his whereabouts should report the same to the Royal Bahamas Police Force," they added.
What did the statement say?
That I'm a fugitive at the Bahamas.
So if you go to the Bahamas, they would arrest you?
It sounds like it.
So eventually, PYRT quickly fell apart, and he was once again sued for defrauding investors. So even in prison, he couldn't stop scamming people. According to reports, Billy sold a third of his shares in PYRT for $740,000 to a fellow inmate. However, when he was released, he never gave his prison friend his shares and refused to pay him back, meaning that there was never really any treasure hunt, and he wouldn't be able to come back to the Bahamas. After all, he still owed $26 million. So, can you guess his master plan to pay it all back?
It's been a long 7 years, but Fyre is back. This is our first step of many. Let's go!
Well, in late 2023, Billy announced the unthinkable, Fyre Festival 2.
Fyre Festival 2 is happening April 25th of 2025, so we're 7.5 months away. We have a private island off the coast of Mexico in the Caribbean.
Tickets ranging from $500 to $1.1 million sold out almost immediately, proving that some people never learn.
We announced our first pre-sale on Sunday. They sold out very, very quickly.
And according to Billy, there are plenty of people bidding and applying for $1 million ticket.
We received over $110 million applications for people who wanted to come to Fyre 2, and that included a number of people who were bidding on or applying to buy $1 million Fyre ticket.
While this iteration is set to take place on an island off the coast of Mexico,
the team is on the island, and it is safe to say things are already looking better than Fyre 1.
Details remain scarce, and skepticism runs high since Billy hasn't booked any artists yet to perform.
I haven't booked any talent for Fyre 2. It's not going to be just music.
As for Ja Rule, his involvement in Fyre Festival remained controversial. Surely he got punished as well, right?
Co-founder Ja Rule defending himself on social media and now saying he was also a victim of the scam as dueling documentaries put the failed event back in the spotlight.
Well, but despite being listed as a co-founder, he claimed that he was also scammed by Billy, and he defended himself by saying, "I too was hustled, scammed, bamboozled, hoodwinked, led astray." Unfortunately for him, not a lot of people believed him, even with his attorney, Stacey Richmond, stating Mr. Atkins would never participate in anything fraudulent. It is simply not in his DNA. He is devastated at the aftermath of what he had genuinely hoped would be an incredible event for all. While the courts found Ja Rule wasn't directly involved in defrauding investors, his name became synonymous with the scandal. Many fans felt betrayed, and his attempts to distance himself only fueled more backlash. See, Ja Rule wasn't just a celebrity face for Fyre Festival, he was actually deeply involved in the event. According to Ja, the festival was his vision.
It was my vision.
It was your vision.
I came to Billy with the ideas. Let's do XYZ.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's create this platform, this app. Let's do the festival.
The festival was his vision, and as it turns out, he was also involved in the app.
You know, came up and created things together with the app, you know. But the festival, everything after was all my visions.
But by the time the date of the festival arrived, it was already in shambles. Ja even admitted that the festival went bust before any major performances had even begun.
The festival went bust day one, on a Thursday, not even the day of actual performances. That was on the Friday. This went bust on Thursday, the inaugural day.
Luckily for him, he wasn't even on the island yet when everything fell apart. Unfortunately for Ja Rule, he was labeled as one of the scammers when the backlash hit.
I got a bunch of 20-year-old kids screaming, "This is fraud." Shut the f up for a second. This is not fraud. Maybe false advertising with them tents, but this is not fraud. You understand?
This accusation is something he hugely denied. In his words, it was false advertising, explaining,
"People false advertise all the time. You understand? They call it puffering. You understand?
Overselling the product.
Yes, you understand? And it's not illegal."
He insisted that neither he nor Billy was set out to trick anyone about the festival itself.
Fraud is the intent to deceive. Never did we try to put on a festival. Our whole intent and plan was to rob everybody of their money.
According to Ja, the true scam came from McFarland falsifying documents to mislead investors, which ultimately landed him in prison.
The fraud and the reason why Billy's doing 6 years in jail is because of what he did to the investors. He
was falsifying the records and the financials.
I got fucking this, I got that, I got the, he ain't got shit. I don't know what the fuck yet, but this is what he was doing to raise the money.
But anyways, while scams like this in music are nothing new, giants like Ticketmaster and Live Nation have been accused of running schemes similar that have left fans feeling cheated. See, in recent years, ticket prices have significantly ballooned to insane proportions. Gone are the days when someone like Kurt Cobain, one of the biggest rock stars of his generation, got baffled when he found out that some artists charged $50 to $70 for tickets, while his band was only charging $18 to $20.
First question is, what do you think of artists who do charge anywhere between $50 to $75 for tickets?
There are people who charges that much money. Who does that?
Now, if you want to see a mainstream hip-hop artist like Drake, you'll have to pay around $200 to $400 for a ticket, and that's only if you buy it before the resale. Some tickets can go up to thousands of dollars, which is absolutely insane. Imagine how Kurt Cobain would react to that. And while you can chalk this up to the fundamentals of economics and inflation, that's not what's happening. As the music industry has grown in recent decades, so have the other industries that are associated with it. And two of the biggest industries that have made the most money out of the music world are circling back to the topic, the ticketing and concert promoting business. The largest ticketing service in the world is Ticketmaster, and the largest concert promoter in the world is Live Nation. However, today, both of these companies now operate as one, dubbed Live Nation Entertainment after both companies merged in 2010, essentially becoming the king of the live music industry. So with the world's largest ticketing service and the world's largest concert promoter operating under one banner, with virtually no competitors to prevent them from dominating the market, you can see how things quickly get out of control very quickly. How out of control, you may ask? Well, how about concert tickets that are priced up to $5,000? And that's not a scalp ticket. That's a ticket price you can buy in Ticketmaster itself. This is what happened when Bruce Springsteen announced a tour in 2022, and fans found out that some tickets cost up to over $5,000.
Springsteen's fans have never felt cheated, until now. Some tickets for Springsteen's 2023 U.S. tour cost between $4,000 and $5,000 apiece, setting off an online storm of outrage and forcing diehard fans to reevaluate their dedication.
And let's just get this out the way here. Bruce Springsteen obviously isn't a hip hop artist, but this isn't a phenomenon that's exclusive to him. In fact, every concert ticket sold by Ticketmaster now has the potential to reach these egregious prices. Imagine going to a Lil Wayne concert and paying $5,000 for mediocre seats. Well, Ticketmaster makes these prices due to a model they call dynamic pricing. Dynamic pricing is an algorithmic model where prices adjust in real time in response based on market forces like supply and demand, cost fluctuation, competitor pricing, and consumer buying behavior. This is a pricing model that the hospitality and airline industries have used for decades, and now Ticketmaster is using it to balloon the prices of tickets to unreasonable heights when they're particularly in demand. That means the more popular the artist is, and the more in demand the concert tickets are, the more expensive these tickets become. However, fans and even some artists were incredibly upset about this pricing model, and understandably so. Due to the backlash, Ticketmaster had to issue a statement where they defended the pricing model, explaining that the dynamic pricing strategy enables artists and other people involved in staging live events to price tickets closer to their true market value. Oh, and by the way, they also explained that artists have the option to opt out of the dynamic pricing model. So if concert tickets for your favorite artists are exorbitantly high, it's not just because of Ticketmaster, they're also at fault. However, in 2018, Ticketmaster got caught by hidden camera footage directly working with ticket scalpers who would buy tickets in bulk and then resell at a much higher price.
This hidden camera footage is from inside a meeting of the world's biggest ticket scalpers. CBC went undercover to expose Ticketmaster and its secret scalper program.
This investigation revealed that not only were Ticketmaster working with scalpers, but they were also encouraging them to sell high ticket resale prices. So not only does the company have a monopoly on the live music industry, but they've also gotten a hold of the ticket reselling business. But that's not all. On top of getting as much as they can from consumers and music fans, Live Nation also faces allegations of drafting predatory touring contracts. You see, just like record labels, Live Nation hands out touring contracts to artists. Jon Bellion, a reputable singer-songwriter who's written for popular artists such as Rihanna, Justin Bieber, and Maroon 5, among many others, have spoken publicly against Live Nation's predatory contracts.
Everything for me, and it was right around the time I figured out how my Live Nation contract worked. Live Nation they're getting everybody coming 12 ways, 12 times a Tuesday.
On top of being a prominent songwriter for major artists, Jon is also an independent artist himself, and at one point, he signed a touring contract with Live Nation and was given an advance of $1 million, which to him seemed advantageous at the time. I mean, you're a young artist and you're given $1 million to kickstart a tour. Of course it sounded appealing. However, as Jon looked deeper into it, he realized that he may not have made the right decision.
When you figure that out on the road and you're thinking, man, why did we buy 300 rolls of toilet paper? Why do we have to spend this much on catering every day? No one's eating the pizza. We're throwing out pies. Wait a second, what? In my contract it says...
Because it's not their money,
you gotta spend this much on catering and it comes out of my pocket?
Yeah.
But then I have to pay in advance back?
Speaking of that advance, it's important to note that the artist can only pay back Live Nation with hard ticket sales. So although they book the venue, Live Nation also pockets the money from parking, food, and alcohol.
About 10,000 people at Jones Beach. The person who buys a $20 hot dog, I don't see a dime of that. The person who buys $40 for parking, I don't see a dime of that. And the person who buys a $20 vodka and Red Bull, I don't see a dime of that. And then you advance me $1 million and tell me I'm rich to then find out that you're making $4 million a night. And it takes me 36 shows to pay back the $1 million you advanced.
And what gives them this power is that Live Nation owns most of the major venues in America. So whenever someone like Jon sells at a venue, everything else the venue earns goes to Live Nation as well.
I figured, and then it hit me, oh my gosh, they own all the venues, it's a monopoly. So then now they just want my body in this room so they can sell food and alcohol and whatever. So then they're gonna make tons of money. And then they got me like schlepping around the United States.
Now consider this. If you're a major artist, you can demand higher ticket prices and can sell out every single venue. However, independent artists like Jon, on the other hand, can find it very tough to pay back these contracts, forcing them to tour as much as they can on a given time frame just to pay back Live Nation.
Having panic attacks. I was like, wait a second. Joe Schmo pays $20 for a hot dog and I don't see that. And if I'm only making my advance back on hard ticket sales, that means I have to sell out every single venue in order to not go in the red. Because I'm only paying my advance back on hard ticket sales.
Now, although he's not a mainstream artist at all, he's still a fairly prominent name in music. He can sell out shows and pack venues. The problem is, he's unable to demand higher ticket prices. What's even worse is that Live Nation can control when tickets go on sale.
By the way, they reserve the right in the contract to put the tickets on sale. So when it's $100 a ticket and they do their summer blowout sale, the tickets are only $10.
Now, while this is great for the fan, it is immensely terrible for the artist as it makes it significantly harder for them to pay their advance.
So instead of me paying back $90 a ticket, right before I go on tour, they drop a Jon Bellion sale and the tickets are only $10. We can get into it, but then you have to pay back the $1 million they gave you off of $10 a ticket rather than the $90 they told you they were going to sell the tickets for. Because now you're doing arenas, now you're doing bigger shows, and they're like, they got you coming 12 times a Tuesday.
So yeah, pretty scummy. This also explains why new up-and-comers are always on tour. Even the biggest artists in the world now, think about when they were still starting out. Post Malone, Drake, Megan Thee Stallion, they all had tours year after year back when they were still starting out. And that's not just because they're promoting their albums, which they were. They also had a contract with a touring company to adhere to. Now, many fans have complained about this, and artists as well, but there's nothing they can do about it. However, the US government has done something to at least try to prevent Ticketmaster and Live Nation from further monopolizing live music. In May of 2024, the Justice Department sued Live Nation Entertainment for unlawfully exercising its monopoly power, depriving music fans of ticketing innovation and forcing them to pay egregious prices.
Service fees, convenience fees, payment processing fees, facility fees, handling fees, shipping fees, ticketing fees, just pay us because we told you fees. That is the price we pay for their control. So from the venue, right, to the promotion, to the ticketing, to the sales, to customers, they control everything. What ends up happening for all of us is we have no choice.
The lawsuit seeks to restore competition in the live concert industry, provide better choices at lower prices for fans, and open venue doors for working musicians and other performance artists. The lawsuit also points out what John Bellion alluded to earlier regarding Live Nation's monopolistic hold over venues. We allege that Live Nation relies on unlawful anti-competitive conduct to exercise its monopolistic control over the live industry in the United States at the cost of fans, artists, smaller promoters, and venue operators. In response, Live Nation argued that the lawsuit was nothing more than the government's response to fan frustrations with the live entertainment industry, which they control. The complaint, and even more so, the press conference announcing it to attempt to portray Live Nation and Ticketmaster as the cause of fan frustration with the live entertainment industry. The complaint blames concert promoters and ticketing companies, neither of which control high ticket prices. Except according to the government and fans, they do. They further said, it ignores everything that is actually responsible for higher ticket prices, from increasing production costs to artist popularity to 24/7 online ticketing scalping that reveals the public's willingness to pay far more than primary tickets cost. Once again, fans weren't happy that Live Nation was pointing their fingers at scalpers. It blames Live Nation and Ticketmaster for high service charges, but ignores that Ticketmaster retains only a modest portion of the fees. In fact, primary tickets is one of the least expensive digital distributions of comp. However, so far, nothing has come out of this lawsuit, and Live Nation reigns supreme. But while Ticketmaster and Live Nation make it hard for fans to see their favorite artists, they're not scamming. However, this next event is really a scam. You see, one time, Wyclef Jean took advantage of a disaster relief effort following Haiti's 2010 earthquake. The natural calamity was absolutely devastating for Haiti, considering how it was one of the most impoverished countries in the world. The 7.0 magnitude earthquake was not only catastrophic, but also considered one of the worst natural disasters in recorded history. By the end, it was estimated that over 220,000 people lost their lives, 300,000 more people were injured, and about 1.5 million people ended up homeless. It was a tragedy of biblical proportions. In response, countries, world leaders, politicians, entrepreneurs, and celebrities lent their helping hand to Haiti in the form of donations and volunteer work. And one of those celebrities is the hip-hop artist who I mentioned, goes by the name Wyclef Jean.
Mobbed like the rock star he is, hip-hop artist Wyclef Jean waded into the streets of his native Haiti, not to perform, but to pass out hot meals in one of the poorest sections of Port-au-Prince.
I think the telethon went great, you know what I mean? But what I want everybody to know is, like, right after the telethon, I came straight out here. Our focus, of course, right now, the people need food, they need water, they need fuel, they need pharmaceuticals.
He used his reach and influence to rally support for his home country of Haiti. As one of the founding members of the Fugees, a 3-time Grammy winner, and as an artist with multiple Billboard charting songs, both as a solo artist and with a group, he had significant influence in the country. So he went on media outlets to talk about tragedies and urge people to donate. He also spent a lot of time in the country itself. Not only that, Wyclef used his charity group named Yele, which he started in 2001, to give donations and provide assistance to Haiti. And it managed to rack up over $16 million in donations after the 2010 earthquake.
Money that is being dispersed right now is an urgency for food, an urgency for medicine, and an urgency for water. And now there's an urgency for toilets, which we will be purchasing. And still we have to purchase temporary tents meanwhile because of the rainy season coming up. So these are some of the plans that Yele plan to do and moving forward.
In the same year, perhaps so he could have a more active hand in helping his country, and since the country's presidential elections were going to be held that same year, Wyclef announced his intentions to run for president.
American hip-hop star Wyclef Jean has arrived in Haiti after announcing that he plans to run for president in the upcoming election. The lead singer of the Fugees said the devastation caused by January's massive earthquake has motivated him to try and rebuild the country. The music star has a big following among Haiti's youth and says he's been recruited by hundreds of thousands of young people wanting a better life.
Unfortunately for John, however, his candidacy would be rejected since he failed to meet the requirement to have been a Haiti resident for over 5 years before the election. Now, considering all of that, it looked like Wyclef Jean just wanted to help. After all, his home country was devastated and he was in a position to provide assistance. However, in a disheartening turn of events, it was later revealed that only less than a third of the amount ever made it to the country's emergency efforts. You see, in a report made by the New York Times, 9.5 million of the 16 million Yele received in donations went to travel, salaries, consultants' fees, and other expenses related to offices and warehouses. Astoundingly, John's charity organization also spent 1.4 million on landscaping, $470,000 on food and beverages, and $37,000 on rent to his Manhattan recording studio. Now, why his charity would ever spend on his recording studio is beyond me. That's not all. The charity also dedicated a portion of the money to projects such as temporary homes, medical center, and the revitalization of a plaza in the city's Soleil slum. None of those projects ever came to fruition. A Haitian caterer also sued Yele for $430,000 in non-payment. If I had depended on Yele, these kids would all be dead by now. That's a woman who ran an orphanage in Haiti's capital during the disaster. This investigation also opened doors to the charity's finances prior to the earthquake, which resulted in similar findings: improper transactions and unaccounted funds. In response, Wyclef admitted that his charity made mistakes, but his heart was in the right place.
As a young NGO coming up, have we made mistakes before? Yes. Did I ever use Yele money for personal benefits? Absolutely not.
2 years after the earthquake struck Haiti, Wyclef Jean's charity went bankrupt and was investigated for fraud.
Wyclef Jean's charity went bust last month, and regulators in the US are now trying to work out how $16 million was spent in the 2 years since the earthquake. Not much of that money appears to have reached those on the ground in Haiti.
So was John's charity a scam? Well, not exactly, but it was horribly mismanaged. They poured the money on the wrong funnels, which meant very little actually made it to the struggling Haitians. Of course, this explanation is very convenient for Wyclef Jean, as whether or not there was intent behind this is another story. I guess I'll leave that up to you. But if you think finessing charity funds is wild, wait till you hear about this next scam. You see, rap fans just can't seem to catch a break when it comes to scamming, because fans down in Pittsburgh got hoodwinked as well earlier this year when a poster of an event of an orchestral rendition of the story of Biggie and Tupac's feud circulated on social media. The event was held by a group called Alternative Symphony. According to the event's official description, it was meant to use highly trained orchestral performers to bring a unique way for fans to experience two of the biggest names in hip-hop. Apparently, the East Coast Orchestra would perform the Notorious B.I.G.'s greatest hits, while the West Coast Orchestra would perform Tupac's classics. Sounds like a fun idea, isn't it? That's what a couple people thought so too. The event was set for June 22nd, 2024, and it would be held in Carrick, Pittsburgh. When the day finally arrived though, and hip-hop fans started arriving, they were met with an empty building.
There is a sign on the door saying, there isn't an event. So, you know, I guess it was a big scam.
As it turns out, all of it was a big scam. According to Here Corp, a company that is housed in the building where the supposed event was going to be held, the event was carried out by a group called ARB Marketing, and a few weeks leading up to the event, the group had seized all means of contact. Attention to those who purchased tickets to the 622 Alternative Symphony event listed at 25 Carrick Avenue. There is not a show scheduled at our 25 Carrick Avenue facility for tonight. It has come to our attention that this event is suspected to be part of a widespread scam carried out by an overseas entity called ARB Marketing. Unfortunately, this company has shut down any means of contact, leaving affected parties with no resources for further information. Here Corp also told those who bought tickets they do not have information regarding ticket sales, so they couldn't assist with refunds whatsoever. Here Corp is not affiliated with entities involved, nor do we have any information regarding ticket sales. So as this news began to gain traction, more people came out and said the group behind this event was also hosting events in other areas in the US. There was one Facebook post that showed a similar event from the same group, and it was supposed to be held in Austin, Texas. That event was a scam as well. Those who fell for this were obviously disheartened, not only because they lost money from the scam, but also because they took the time and made a day out of the whole thing. A woman named Michelle Neff drove in from West Virginia just to witness the event. There was nobody there. Really, it was an empty parking lot. What do we do next? We drove to Pittsburgh, and now we have something else to do. With the benefit of hindsight, we can say things like, oh, that scam was so obvious, or how did no one see the red flags, and all of that. But if you thought tricking a whole city like Pittsburgh was bad, let's talk about something even more heinous. See, in this day and age, scams can also be in the form of NFTs, non-fungible tokens. And because of how easy it is for rappers to leverage their fanbase into investing into whatever cryptocurrency scam they promote, it's become a goldmine to hustle even your most loyal fans, and many have seen this as a surefire way to make money, despite the fact that they're exploiting the loyalty of their fans and scamming them out of their hard-earned cash. And unfortunately, one of those rappers who are notorious for doing so is the now incarcerated Tory Lanez, but not for scamming. You see, Tory Lanez made waves when he announced his ambitious NFT project. See, this wasn't your normal NFT scam because on paper, it actually seemed revolutionary. because Tory thought of a massive change in how artists and fans interacted. He thought to himself, NFTs were already popular in art, gaming, and other industries, so why not music? So Tory came up with a plan to sell his album as an NFT for just $1. Yep, you heard that right. He was willing to sell his album for only $1. And the concept behind this was simple. Fans would buy NFTs cheaply and they would be able to resell them for higher prices later on. Theoretically, the resale model could create a thriving market, especially for high-demand artists. In an interview with the Full Send podcast, he shared his first experience of his first NFT venture.
Basically, the first time I did it, I sold 3 pieces of art and 3 songs that were unreleased at the time. And I made $500,000 in 90 seconds.
Here, he claimed pieces being sold for $700 were allegedly reselling for $34,000 within a week. It looked like Tory was all in on NFTs because he and his team, Immersive Entertainment, would even make an NFT streaming platform called ENFT.
The first ever NFT streaming platform. So it's called ENFT. And basically you're gonna be able to listen to whatever anybody puts in.
But what is ENFT? Well, according to their site, it's the only digital marketplace to purchase exclusive ENFT digital assets from artists, athletes, celebrities, and brands.
So imagine your favorite artist drops a project that he's making only 500 of them. And he's like, yo, each of these are 1,000 each, but there's only 500 of them.
At first look, his vision was great as he tried to help his artists and fans all together.
You and those 500 people will take those and the $1,000 will now change to, well, me and these 500 people are the only people with this. I'm selling this for $10,000.
However, do these NFTs really help and make you money? Well, in 2021, it looked like everything was going according to Tory's plan. Tory made headlines when he sold 1 million copies of his NFT album, When It's Dark, in under 1 minute. The album consisted of 7 unreleased tracks, sold as NFTs for just $1. And in a video posted by Tory, you can see how he jumped for joy when he was told that his NFT album launch was a success.
Before I did the video, I was like, yo, I don't want to celebrate for no reason. I want to make sure I'm celebrating for the right... It's good.
He also tried explaining to his fans what happened, but he was still clearly hyped up about what was happening because to him, he was about to change the music industry.
Did it. I just sold the equivalent units at $1. Sold 1 million copies flat by that's platinum, and I sold 1 million copies and I made $1 million in less than a minute.
According to Tory, he was able to sell the album because he eliminated the middleman. And with NFTs, Lanez emphasized that the fans who bought the album became investors with the potential to profit from the resale value of his music.
It doesn't matter how much you bought. It was only $1. You spent $60, you bought 60. I need y'all to understand. One of those copies right now is going for 50,000, 60,000, 60,000. Yo, my nigga, and these are sold.
Initially, it looked like it was groundbreaking. In a video posted by Tory himself, he expressed how hyped he was on how much his NFT album was making.
I told y'all. $1 for the NFTs, right? I sold these to my fans for $1. People came, some people bought 20, some people bought 5, some people bought 60.
However, Tory's excitement wasn't just about money. It was about the power shift. He believed that he had unlocked a future where artists could entirely bypass traditional systems. In his eyes, this was the end of the old music industry. He didn't want to be a part of record labels anymore, stating,
"It's over. No more middlemen. All y'all artists out there, f your label. F that's telling you, yo, you gotta wait for this day on Spotify and on this. F that. It's over. Y'all gonna get paid."
And within days, those $1 albums began skyrocketing in resale value. Tory claimed that copies of his NFT album were being sold for as much as $50,000 or $60,000.
Right now, I think the lowest copy right now is going for 30,000. The lowest, like the lowest you can sell it for. Imagine a who bought 5. Imagine a who spent $5.
However, many felt like this was too good to be true.
Imagine a who really spent $5. He can make 500,000. Selling them for 100,000 right now and are buying it. Have you ever sold an album for 100,000? Yo.
And you see, they were right. Because what Tory forgot to mention in these videos is the chaos that happened during the launch of When It's Dark. Because despite seeing this as a successful event, some fans on social media said otherwise. Even his Instagram post about the NFT flooded with comments about it being a scam, with users commenting, "Lol, ain't no one making money, but Tory, trust me, and when this doesn't work out and people that bought it make no money, he will never do it again." Another user commented, "This dude out here talking about how his NFT is selling for $60K when they're selling for $2. Talking about how his album sold 1 million copies in 60 seconds when they were on pre-order for 5 days. I own 30 copies and I have only sold 2 at $4.80. On top of that, one user even claimed that the album had no resales at that time, saying, "Lies on that site right now. It clearly states no resales at this time. Why are you lying for? I don't get the point." On the other hand, a lot of fans argued that the platform eNFT was unstable and had many glitches. They said that the problems with the platform made it hard to sell the NFT. Buyers like Antonio Vasquez, a crypto enthusiast and NFT artist better known as the Frag, purchased 10 NFTs during the pre-sale. At first, he was very optimistic. However, things started to go south as soon as the eNFT marketplace went live. The platform crashed under the volume of transactions, remaining down for over 24 hours. Vasquez criticized Lanez directly on Twitter, arguing, "Same as you told us that the eNFT would make bread, floor is at $2, my guy." However, Tory dismissed the complaints, tweeting, "What's crazy is, you just don't know how to work the market. That's fine. Plenty of people made way more return than invested. But even if I was taking what you're saying serious, the NFT sold for $1. Even if it resold for $2, you would still double your money." 2 clown emojis. But the criticism didn't stop there. For instance, eNFT imposed a 15% fee on every transaction, which was higher than other platforms. Hey Tory lame, don't forget the 15% in taxes that your platform steals from people. Or the $5 gas fees to go move from the platform when Matic is only 1 cent in gas fee. Huh? Unfortunately for the fans, Tory wouldn't even respond to these requests. The one who stepped in was Brian McFarland, the chief strategy officer of eNFT's parent company. In an interview with Rolling Stone, he stated that all the technical problems had been fixed. Due to the unprecedented volume of the eNFT transactions, there were some minor and short-term site functionality issues, but all known transaction issues are now fixed. But Frag wasn't alone with this dilemma. In fact, Bianca Binks Petruzella, co-owner of the NFT agency Third Planet Studio, also sent an email to Rolling Stone and stated that she purchased 10 copies during the pre-sale to value the platform for her artists. "We purchased multiple albums during the pre-sale to see what features they offer, and if this was a platform we would consider for our own musicians." Her experience, however, was no better. When she attempted to sell one of her NFTs for $1,000, the site gave her no confirmation. Over a month later, she still hadn't received payment or the return of her asset. And unfortunately, the customer service wasn't really helpful either, as they only gave generic automated replies. Unfortunately, that's not the only issue Binks encountered. Another problem was the platform's lengthy processing period for transactions. While the platform's terms allowed up to a 30-day processing period, this was a major red flag for some experts in the field. Catherine Zhu, special counsel at Foley & Lardner LLP, and a member of the law firm's NFT task force, pointed out that this 30-day delay was far from standard practice for NFT transactions, saying, "If you go on any other platforms, the transfer of funds should be fairly quick, if not the same day. Usually the way it's done is through a smart contract. It's the rewriting of the record on the blockchain. So there's not a processing period that the company takes on top of that. I would say it's pretty unusual." On top of that, the issues went beyond the slow payment processing and high fees. See, when Petruzella tried to transfer her remaining NFTs to a personal crypto wallet, she found out they never actually arrived. Although eNFT claimed users could view their transactions on Polyscan, which is supposed to contain all the records of transactions, Petruzella found no trace of her tokens, adding, "The one we sold disappeared along with the ones we withdrew. No contract addresses for them are provided." And there's still many users across the internet who felt scammed by this NFT scheme. However, some people can be more optimistic than others. For instance, one Reddit user thought that the delayed payments were caused by Tory's other issues at the time. I mean, he did get arrested and sentenced to 10 years in prison for shooting Megan Thee Stallion in 2020. The Reddit user Keeping Faith said, "Tory Lanez NFT not paying money for sold NFTs. Tory Lanez NFT refuses to pay me or reply to emails. Anyone have this issue? Maybe it has something to do with Tory Lanez getting convicted." Unfortunately, almost everyone in the thread instantly knew what was happening, and some of them had a good laugh at the situation. This is the funniest shit I've read all day. While some users just gave them the straightforward truth. Most celebrities put their name on NFTs because some third-party NFT scammers convince them. Unless someone sues them for not following through on their promises, they have no reason to pay you. Likely, you'll never get your money back for these NFT scams, unfortunately. Adding fuel to the fire, critics also accuse them of misleading fans by implying their investments were guaranteed. And as we all know, there isn't really a guarantee in these types of schemes. The fallout from the album's release also exposed inconsistencies in Lanez's promotional strategies. See, Tory began endorsing unrelated cryptocurrencies like Boost Coin after pushing the eNFT platform. And this was a big red flag from fans who felt betrayed. One Twitter user, NFT_madman, expressed his frustrations, saying, "I no longer believe in anything you say. I invested in your NFT because of what you said. I invested in Boost Coin because of what you said. Do I truly need a third strike from you? I understand you have enough money to not care about the loss I took supporting you. Forgive you though." So Tory Lanez's NFT venture promised a new bold vision in the music industry, but the reality fell short. Way short. Instead of empowering his fan base, Tory left many feeling hustled, which added to the bad rep of ethics of NFTs in music. However, Tory wasn't alone in adapting to the NFT trend. You see, the NFT wave swept through hip-hop, with names like 6ix9ine, Lil Uzi Vert, and Lil Yachty facing their own controversies. But you see, even the OGs in the game were blinded by these NFTs. Take Snoop Dogg for instance. In February of 2020, he sold over $44 million worth of Stashbox NFTs in just 5 days. Imagine that. It's almost $8 million per day. That's almost $9 million per day for 5 days. Each NFT offered fans a stake in his music catalog and hinted at a new era for his newly acquired Death Row Records, which he planned to reimagine as the first major, quote-unquote, NFT label.
It will be an NFT label. We will be putting out artists through the metaverse, just like we broke the industry when we was the first independent to be major. I want to be the first major in the metaverse. So Death Row will be an NFT label.
But not everyone was convinced. While some saw the potential in this tech, others were quick to point out its flaws. Kanye West, for instance, dismissed the trend. In a now deleted Instagram post, he wrote, "Stop asking me to do NFTs, I'm not finna co-sign. For now, I'm not on that wave, I make music and products in the real world." So for Ye, real world products and music were where the focus should remain. But the NFT disaster didn't stop there. In 2021, Lil Uzi Vert lent his name to the Eternal Beings NFT project, promising buyers perk like an exclusive live performance. The project raised millions from eager fans, only for Uzi to drop out of it. And without Uzi's continued promotion, the NFTs plummeted in value. Many accused the rapper and the project's team of cashing in and bailing, leaving fans in the dust, which, let's be real, that's what happened. Then, Lil Yachty, another high-profile name, also faced backlash for his involvement in NFTs. His collaboration with the company called Fuse led to the creation of Yachty Coin.
Advertising Little Yachty times Fyuse, despite the fact that this Yachty coin has already lost all of its value.
But the reality, the coin's value sank almost immediately after launch.
As they were selling this, it was pretty much like you were betting on Little Yachty's career, and if Little Yachty kept accelerating and had like some hit songs and stuff, your coin is gonna shoot up. You're gonna make so much money.
Critics were quick to label it a scam, and some even speculated that these projects might be fronts for money laundering.
You could see here they did some NFTs with Little Yachty, something I also consider to be a huge scam. I mean, it's either that or all these rich celebrities are laundering money through these NFTs.
Adding to the chaos, Yachty later sued a different NFT platform for allegedly using his name without permission. So it seemed like the world of NFTs was a mess, even for the artists themselves. So why do rappers even try to switch to NFTs in the first place? Well, the answer lies in hip-hop's long-standing relationship with status symbols. Much like flashy cars or iced-out chains, NFTs became a way to flex in the digital era. Take the Bored Ape Yacht Club, for example. This NFT was a series of monkey-themed NFTs that became the ultimate symbol of clout. Artists like Future, Meek Mill, Post Malone, or even Eminem bought in, with some like Gunna going so far as to tattoo their NFT on their body. But as music critic Anthony Fontana pointed out, this wasn't just about passion or art. In a piece wrote for the Washington Post, he accused rappers of luring fans into an unstable marketplace with no safety net.
It isn't a passion, it's barely a newfound interest. The whole thing stinks like an AstroTurf promotional campaign to generate interest in cheaply made primate doodles. This is not the kind of world for people who are still learning how to make smart financial decisions.
He added that NFTs will only damage the relationship with their fans, stating,
"Famous musicians and other celebrities greedily funneling their fans into this space isn't helping. It's just assuring that this stuff stays lucrative at the cost of a genuine emotional connection people have made."
And to be honest, as hated and unlikable as he can be, he wasn't wrong. However, that didn't really stop even the biggest names in rap to emerge in NFTs. Because it's not just lesser known rappers getting away with NFT and crypto promo. Even legends like Jay-Z and 50 Cent are guilty of it too. You see, as the years progressed, NFTs were even used in rap beefs. Just take a look at what happened between Jay-Z and Dame Dash. In 2021, Jay-Z sued Dame Dash for allegedly trying to sell a share in Jay's debut album, Reasonable Doubt. However, Dame denied the accusation, stating he was only selling a share of Rockefeller, stating,
"And because there's nothing they can do about it, they accuse me of minting the whole album. They accuse me of soliciting that I'm going to sell the whole album or the rights or the copyright solely just because so no one else would want to buy it."
Unfortunately, the two weren't able to settle their differences, and things quickly escalated to the courtroom, where both sides accused each other of spreading misinformation. Fortunately, a year later, Rockefeller and Dash settled their feud. Ironically, Jay-Z himself later auctioned off Reasonable Doubt-inspired NFT artwork for $139,000, proving that even hip-hop's royalty wasn't above cashing in on the new trend. And I honestly doubt the artwork was worth 50% of that price. Speaking of 50, he also had a stunt promoting shady crypto. See, in June of that year, he posted a suspicious tweet which promoted a cryptocurrency called Gunna. The post simply read, $Gun for winners only. Considering the name of the token, and it being posted by 50 Cent himself, many of 50's fans wasted no time purchasing the coin, not knowing any better, causing the price of the token to immensely rise within an hour of the post. Unfortunately for those who bought into the crypto, 50 would later clarify things only a day after the original post went live. He took to Instagram to say, "My Twitter, thisis50.com, was hacked. I have no association with this crypto. Twitter worked quickly to lock my account back down. Whoever did this made $3 million in 30 minutes. See, what happened was, as soon as the value of Gunna coin peaked, the developers behind it scammers/hackers in this case, withdrew all the funds for the project and abandoned it, leaving the quote-unquote investors, in this case, mainly consisting of 50's fans, with worthless tokens. In the crypto community, this is what is known as a rug pull. And unfortunately for 50 Cent and his fans, the scammers pulled it off perfectly. Another rapper who tricked his fans into buying worthless crypto schemes is T.I. Back in 2017, the Atlanta rapper's name was dragged through the mud for partnering with a businessman named Ryan Felton, who ended up selling unregistered cryptocurrency tokens called Flick. For context, Flick was designed in a way that required it to be registered within the SEC or Securities and Exchange Commission for a lot of legal reasons, most importantly, from fraud. However, Felton had a different idea and tried to bypass the law with Flick tokens. Having T.I. promote and publicize Flick was bound to convince at least one fan for the fall of the scam. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. An investor, Kenneth Feddens, purchased $3,000 worth of Flick and sued the pair in 2019, accusing Ryan and T.I. of 3 securities violations in the US. Although the judges later dismissed the lawsuit by saying the claim had no legs to stand on, T.I. still wasn't out of the woods yet, because in September of 2020, T.I. was ordered to pay $75,000 in his involvement in cryptocurrency fraud and not participate in offers or sales of digital asset securities for 5 years. His spokesperson later said that even though T.I. was technically the Flick founder's business partner, he still never took a dollar from Mr. Felton's failed venture and immediately removed his name from it once he learned that the project was undeveloped. His camp also added that Mr. Harris responded to all inquiries made by the SEC, and the settlement announced Friday is in full satisfaction of that investigation. Mr. Harris will continue to look for ways to help new artists gain access to digital distribution. It seems like T.I. was just a victim of his own ignorance. The worst part was that the person running T.I.'s social media account was reaching out to fans, actively offering and selling the tokens under his name. Naturally, this led many of T.I.'s fans to trust the alleged investment, thinking that their favorite rapper also co-owned Flick instead of just being a promoter, and was reaching out to them, which caused a lot of fans to get caught up in the shady token scheme. But there's also that time when Rich the Kid blatantly promoted an NFT project called Rich Kids. September of 2021, Rich the Kid launched Rich Kids Project and started to promote it online, saying,
"I'm dropping my first ever NFT. This will sell out instantly."
Unfortunately, there were a number of Rich the Kid fans who bought into it. And I'm not in a position to say that NFTs or any other crypto endeavor is a scam, but in this case, it definitely was. See, each NFT was priced between $200 and $300 at the time, and with over 7,000 sold, it meant that Rich and his team raised nearly $2 million from the project. And he was more than enthusiastic after realizing how successful it was. However, once they started to rake in the money and began transferring it to separate accounts, that's when fans realized they might have been finessed. They gradually stopped engaging with fans in their own Discord servers, eventually abandoning them, and leaving supporters of the NFT to fend for themselves against other scammers looking to exploit them further. And of course, if you visit Rich the Kid's Twitter account, you'll see that his most recent activity was in October of 2021, which was a repost of someone claiming that he won Rich the Kid's Gold Edition Lyrics NFT. That's almost 5 years of inactivity, which meant that this was a classic case of a rug pull. To be honest, I wonder why I didn't tweet more to cover this up. Anyways, the main difference is that Rich the Kid wasn't coerced into being a promoter for the NFT or anything like that, as the project itself had his name and branding, which he heavily endorsed online. And although some disgruntled fans started to air out their frustrations online, announcement to all #NFT newcomers: don't deal by any way with @Rich the Kid and his project @RichKidsNFT. This guy scammed all investors in his project. Be aware, you can check #RichKidsCommunity to make sure what happened with them. However, it was already too late by then. Rich the Kid and his team had already ran off with the money. And Rich must have assumed that deceiving his fans into buying whatever crypto he promoted would be an endless payday, because in 2025, he pushed yet another one. This time, it was a fake Kanye coin. He started up posting this, followed by the writing, "This is it, I guess." However, once the token crashed, he deleted the post with no prior explanation. Thankfully, once this user exposed him by screenshotting it, saying, "Alert, @Rich the Kid has posted about a fake Kanye coin," it seems like their account may be compromised. Stay vigilant and avoid any potential scams. Stop chasing rugs. This led to some fans accusing him of misleading others just to secure a quick bag, and I mean, it's no surprise because he did it in the past. However, NFT schemes were just the tip of the iceberg, because mainstream rappers also go out of their way to swindle their audience. One very popular example of a rapper who attempted to scam people is Soulja Boy. See, in 2018, Soulja Boy released a video game console, which he called the Soulja Game, as well as a handheld version of that console called the Soulja Game Handheld. The standard console reportedly came with 800 built-in games, while the handheld device came with an astounding 3,000 built-in games. That's incredible, isn't it? Soulja Boy thought so too. So the Soulja Game console basically just housed emulators of classic consoles ranging from the NES and Sega, the Game Boy, and PS1. The handheld console, on the other hand, played games from the PS Vita, 3DS, Switch, and more. Now, if you were a casual gamer who simply wanted to have a massive library of games to play in your downtime, these consoles sound like a great idea. However, as it turns out, Soulja's consoles were just repackaged Chinese knockoffs of bootleg emulator machines. What's worse is that you can buy these very same consoles from Amazon and AliExpress for 50% cheaper than Soulja was selling them. And when Soulja faced criticism regarding his so-called consoles, he just proclaimed that people didn't want to see a black entrepreneur succeed.
My new video game, you know what I'm saying?
They say that counterfeit is too now.
They always hate on the black entrepreneur. They'll give props to the Asians at Nintendo, the white people at Xbox, white people at PlayStation, but a black entrepreneur to come out with a rapper, the first rapper to come out with his own video game, they're gonna say it's counterfeit and it's this and that. They're gonna try to shit on me.
So basically, the consoles were counterfeit, he sold them for twice the price, he was a dropshipper. Alright, that on its own was controversial already, but what's worse is that these emulation machines were absolutely crap to play on.
First and most importantly, the emulation is really bad. Every game looks to have a slight weird filter over it that you can really notice on the older game.
Soulja Boy didn't stop there though, because after releasing his first two consoles, he released two more called Retro Soulja Boy Mini and Soulja Game Fuse. The first one is a Game Boy knockoff, and the second one is a repackage of a Chinese-made device that essentially combined the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And yes, you can buy both of these consoles outside of Soulja Boy's website for a lower price, and both suck completely. The Retro Soulja Boy Mini was so bad that the games that came with it were only in Chinese since it was emulated in China. It virtually made the game unplayable for non-Chinese speakers. Now, just how much did Soulja Boy make off these consoles? As it turned out, he made bank.
How much did I make yesterday, Charlotte?
Boy, if you don't stop yelling at me.
How much did I make yesterday?
It's $233,000, $604.88.
Thank you.
And that was apparently just one day's worth of sales. And Soulja apparently sold about 5 million consoles in total, which is a huge amount of money. But can we trust them? Anyways, all of this would have been well and good, but remember, these devices ran on emulators. And if there's one thing video game companies don't like about emulation, it's that they see them as acts of piracy. As it happens, the console Soulja was selling never obtained the rights to the games that were on their devices, which meant that Soulja Boy was selling devices that were pre-installed with pirated games. What a world. Soulja Boy just invented Apple products and Nintendo products and put the word Soulja in front of their names, one tweet wrote. Another tweet nagged Nintendo directly, saying, "Nintendo America is gonna have a field day with you in court." In response to these claims, Soulja went off on a series of tweets saying how he wasn't scared and how his detractors knew nothing about his business and all of that, but he also called out Nintendo directly, saying if Nintendo was going to do something, they would have done it the first day. My console not going anywhere, everything I'm doing is 100% legit, stay mad and I'll keep getting richer. He followed that tweet up with another which said, Nintendo ain't gonna do shit. And as if reacting from Soulja's tweets directly, it didn't take long for Nintendo to act, because one day after Soulja said those things, Soulja Boy took down the consoles from his website. If you try to visit SouljaGame.com, you'd be redirected to Nintendo's 3DS website. Soulja addressed this on Twitter, saying, "I had to boss up, I didn't have a choice." Who could have seen that coming, huh? So while some rappers settle with finessing money off of vulnerable victims, cough cough, their own fans, some are so confident in their operations that they go as far as to scam influencers in front of thousands of viewers. So here's some rappers who took scamming to another level, ripping their fans and sometimes even peers off shamelessly without a second thought. First up, we have Mocha Blast, an artist with a couple of songs over 1 million plays, but who didn't exactly get famous for his music. See, he had a particular fixation with using Tinder to find love, and it wasn't just about companionship, no. For him, the dating app served as his personal hunting ground, a place where he could target unsuspecting victims for his infamous love scam. One of his victims recalled meeting Mocha on Tinder, where they quickly hit it off and began dating. However, things took a turn when he started borrowing money from her for all kinds of reasons, ranging from hotel rooms.
Asked if I could lend him some money so he could get a separate room. And it was always lend, and he would pay me back. So I was quite happy to do that.
Little did she know, Mocha was slowly building trust in order to ask her for a bigger amount next time.
So I think it then was that he needed some money to buy furniture for the barbershop. He was always saying, I'm going to be a millionaire with that. I'm going to be a millionaire. You know,
He kept making promises and excuses to get money from her. But when she made it clear she wouldn't let it continue, he cut her off immediately, ghosting her in the process. After she did more digging about him on the internet, that's when she found out something truly horrible about the man she thought she knew and loved.
After finding out that there were a number of other women, so I'd contacted a friend of his, and his friend said to me that there were hundreds of women. It wasn't just in America and not just in London, it was all over the world.
She later added,
so wherever he went, there was a woman that he was in a relationship with or made them believe that he was in a relationship with and needed some money.
And her research led her to the horrifying revelation of a Facebook group full of women who have been scammed out of their money by Mocha Blast.
This Facebook page, because there's now 4,000 women on this,
There
or
are.
members of this Facebook page.
Yeah.
Not all just in relationships, some of whom have lent him money for business reasons or whatever.
But Tinder wasn't his only source of victims. He also regularly frequented Facebook and began sending private messages to these women.
For some women, it started with a Facebook message.
Right away was calling me my lady and my love.
Full of charm.
He was very sweet. He was very charismatic.
And looking for love.
Little did they know, they were about to become targets of a serial love scammer. However, living a double life and conning dozens of women out of their money didn't come with no risk. One day, while he was at one of the women's houses, a disgruntled man ran up on him while being interviewed, wanting to know why he was at his girl's place. From there, the situation got so heated that Mocha ended up the man live on stream.
And that's what I didn't have. So
Here's Birch doing a live interview on YouTube at the woman's house when Coney barges in. You see Coney's reflection in the television monitor as Birch raises a gun and kills him.
Rest in peace. So that would be the end of his serial scamming spree, right? Well, not exactly, because
prosecutors decided the was self-defense.
My boyfriend as he broke down my door.
To make the situation even wilder, a separate woman dialed authorities too, telling them about the incident which she saw live.
Woman who says she was watching the interview from Arizona and also called 911 seemed to think Birch was her boyfriend too.
What is your boyfriend's name? Lydell Birch.
After being pardoned for the Mocha Blast hopped on YouTube and uploaded a freestyle recalling the events on that fateful day, blaming the woman for it all. I'm quite pissed, almost lost my life because of a white bitch. Not only that, he also taunted the victims' families by rapping, "Man, it's true, a man, it's been in the news." In response to this shameless behavior, a friend of Mocha's victims created a Facebook page, giving women a platform to speak out and share their experiences of being caught in the twisted scam.
After Coney was killed, a friend of his, Nicole Leonard, created this Facebook page, Victims of Lydell, aka Mocha Blast, the serial scammer.
Now, there's no telling how much money this man has scammed over the years, and to this day, he's still at it, continuing to find gullible women on the internet. And while Mocha scammed thousands of women online, Playboy Cardi took it a step further by finessing a streamer live on camera. For some context, Playboy Cardi didn't just take money from any random streamer. In fact, he finessed one of the biggest streamers in the world. See, to say that Aiden Ross is a powerhouse in the streaming world would be an understatement. He averages 40,000 viewers per stream and boasts about 2 million followers on the platform. So when he announced on stream that Playboy Cardi, the rarest rapper of this generation, was going to be pulling up live, fans went ballistic. They knew how rare it was to see Cardi do an interview, let alone show up at all. So naturally, this was a huge deal. Before the stream, Aiden set the vibe by playing Cardi's songs and even turned up the lights, just as requested. But when Cardi and his entourage finally walked in after being a few hours late, it was nothing short of awkward.
What's good? How you doing, bro? You alright? Nice to officially meet you. Chat, Cardi in the right now. We got 500,000 people watching.
Despite his efforts to start a conversation with some simple small talk, it was quite obvious Cardi wasn't feeling it at all.
Chat, you guys gotta understand, bro. The streaming, it's your first time doing the streaming, isn't it? Yeah. I got you, bro.
In an effort to make him more comfortable, Aiden proceeded to give him a bag with $2 million in it. Imagine that. Somebody's not feeling you, so you give them $2 million.
Some cash for you. Yeah, a little gift from me to you. You know, it's a good amount of money in here. You know, it's a lot amount of money in here. I got you, bro.
But at least it worked, right? Well, not exactly. By that point, the majority of Aiden's viewers had a field day warning him about Cardi, writing scam all over the chat.
Hold on. Wait, talk real quick.
Love you. Thank you so much for everything.
Some even wrote that once Aiden gave him the money, Cardi was just gonna stand up and leave. And that's exactly what happened. And after the smile on Aiden's face vanished, that's when he realized he just got finessed by Cardi.
You leave right now? Yeah. Alright, let me mute real quick.
And while he was escorting him and his crew outside, his chat went crazy. To make matters worse, Aiden Ross went out of his way to make sure that the Cardi stream was successful. He flew across the country and got kicked to shell out $2 million in cash and a brand new Ferrari just to secure the interview, as well as providing a private jet. In fact, he was willing to give millions of more dollars if Cardi stayed for longer and spoke more. But despite all of that, he still got finessed. Not only did Cardi and his team show up late, he didn't even spend an hour in front of the camera. And when he did, you could hardly see him. As soon as he walked out, Aiden reacted accordingly and canceled the private jet since Cardi never finished the full stream. The whole situation was a complete mess. Even Soulja Boy called to check on Aiden after Cardi left, which I guess you can say says a lot about the situation. Afterwards, Cardi never really faced that much backlash, as fans blamed the entire situation on Aiden, writing, "I honestly think it's hilarious. Aiden is desperate, who talks smack about others, and Cardi of all people embarrassed him and finessed him on live for $2 million. As well as Cardi hugging him after scamming him is straight wild. LMAO." But you know what's wild? A year after Cardi stole $2 million from him, Aiden recently teased the possibility that the two might do another stream together. Maybe this one is going to actually last longer than 20 minutes. And to add to that, Playboy Cardi isn't the only rapper who's been caught scamming or trying to finesse Aiden Ross on camera. Another major rapper who pulled something similar was 21 Savage. And this also happened on live. At first, the stream started out with Aiden and 21 playing things like NBA 2K or other card games. However, once they started booting up 2K, Aiden was absolutely cooking him. It got to a point where 21 owed Aiden $500,000. Aiden tried to be a good sport and offered to buy one of 21 Savage's homies a car with the money that the rapper owed, saying,
Alright, what do you think would be a fair buy right now?
Whatever you think would be a fair buyout.
I'll tell you what, you owe me $250 instead of $400.
Alright.
Yeah.
which was honestly not needed at all. So after 21 got washed once again on 2K, 21 asked Aiden to play another game with him. This time, his choice was a card game.
The card's over, face down on the table, and you just pull, and whoever got the highest card wins.
All 52 cards, basically.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's do that, way better.
Shortly after, 21 handed the deck of cards to one of his homies off camera, who ended up marking the cards. In other words, they rigged the game to make it easier for 21 to win. Obviously, Aiden somewhat realized that he might be getting fleeced by 21.
Are those your cards?
Yes. A pack, yeah.
You say you just opened it?
Yeah, they're brand new.
Okay.
To make the situation wilder, one of 21's homies sat beside him to help him figure out where the marked cards were, even blatantly pointing at one of the cards.
Bro. Where my soda?
Of course, 21 ended up winning the game, finessing him out of $120,000. However, Aiden's guys behind the scenes pointed out that the card game was rigged.
What? Look at the little scratches on the... Put it on my finger.
Little scratch?
But this one doesn't have a scratch and it's a king. I don't think you would do that, bro.
Yeah.
21's homie who helped mark the cards tried to play it off, but Aiden was onto them at this point.
Look, I'll show you. Get the other face cards up. I'm gonna show you right here, watch. Right there's a little scratch.
Afterwards, he tried telling Savage that the cards were marked, to which Savage obviously denied.
They're back onto
They're marked, bro.
They're back onto what?
These are marked. Look. Look, you see a little scratch right there? This one don't got it though.
What scratch?
You don't see right here?
Telling Aiden he was the one tripping after scamming him live on stream in 4K is egregious work.
Let me another face card. Yeah, this one doesn't have it. Right there, there's a mark on that one. Nah, yeah, see that mark right there? I'm not tripping, bro. That's a mark.
But hey, he's a rapper. He can get away with things like this. 21 continued to do his best to pretend that he didn't know what Aiden was saying.
It's on the top and the bottom. You flip it, it's in the same spot. Like, upside down the other way.
Like, you see what I'm saying? You see a little scratch right there?
Having 21 Savage and his entire entourage behind the cameras probably made Aiden hesitate to outright call him out, but he still tried to prove to 21 that the marks were real.
There, yeah, they all have scratches on it, bro, the face card. See, this one's on a face card, doesn't have it. Look, every face card has a scratch on it, bro.
So only the face cards
have scratches. Right there, there's the same scratch on the king.
Once that was finished, they tried to settle it in a game of 2K, but the atmosphere already shifted into an awkward situation.
I can't beat you at 2K, bro.
Just call it. Because what I'll do is, you playing, what are you doing, shoot around?
But once again, instead of feeling bad for Aiden, some fans pointed out that he's an easy target for scams like this, especially since he genuinely believes he has real friendships with the big rappers he brings on stream. This is just a typical hood scenario playing out here. Aiden thinks they're his friends, they see him as free publicity to move into streaming, and then the greed sets in when they think they see an easy mark. But that's not the only way to scam other people as a rapper. You see, sometimes rappers get so caught up in the world of scamming that it becomes their #1 priority. This was the case for Man Kevo, aka the self-proclaimed finesse god, a Chicago rapper who treated fraud like his second nature. In fact, if his nickname wasn't obvious, he loves money and scamming. To add to that, he was different from the other rappers because of his tendency to pull off elaborate scams. While they were focused on making music, Kevo was out in the streets running bank fraud schemes and credit card scams instead. You see, from a young age, Kevo felt like the regular 9-to-5 itself was a scam, saying,
I felt like that was a scam because I ain't never seen nobody get rich off working a job. You feel me? So I'm just like, I'm not trying to work no job. That's kind of stressful, you know?
He also added,
because then you look at the person who own the company, they millionaires, and I'm getting this little weak ass $150, $200, you know?
Although he made a lot of money by running scams and moving illegal substances, his luck eventually ran out in 2014 when it was reported that he was arrested and charged with bank fraud. According to an affidavit, the 6 individuals are accused of obtaining upwards of $639,745 in a bank fraud scheme called cracking cards. They're accused of recruiting people to give them debit cards and pins for a portion of the profits. And stealing more than $500,000 with credit cards is crazy work. But how did his operation work in the first place? Well, with bank information, Kevo and his crew deposited counterfeit checks into third-party accounts and would then use fraudulent credit and debit cards to get cash from ATMs. While waiting for the jury to to make a decision, they discovered even more scams under his belt. See, not only was he committing bank fraud, he was also guilty of credit card fraud, and as a result, he was sentenced to 22 months in federal prison for his crimes after pleading guilty. Instead of displaying remorse for his scams, Kevo doubled down and said that he'll be a better rapper than ever following his release. "I will do everything possible to stay relevant," Kevo said. 22 months will fly, and I will be back better than ever, and on my cocky shit. However, stealing from gullible people wasn't his only crime. See, he also stated that he wanted a couple of police officers on his social media, which led to authorities requesting a no-knock arrest authority for Kevo because he posted a statement on his Facebook account stating his desire to law enforcement officers. So once he was finally done serving a sentence of up to 3 years, he steered his focus towards being a rapper. And what better way to revive his career than a feature from a huge rapper like Gunna? Well, Kevo seemed to think that the Gunna cosign was going to boost his stocks even more as an artist. However, there was a problem. See, after he paid him the money for the feature, that's when Gunna got locked up at the same time. He took to Twitter to voice out his frustrations, writing, "I paid Gunna last year for a feature, $250K, and months later he got caught, which put my feature and everything else on hold, just for him to get released and snitch. He even threatened to sue Gunna and his camp if they didn't give him his money back. I can't do a song with you, I need my bread back ASAP, and if they cap, I'm going big lawsuit." In response to this, fans began to make fun of the finesse god himself, saying, "The finesse god got finessed, LMAO." A couple months later, he sat down with Seichis for an interview, and they talked about the whole Gunna situation as well.
You paid Gunna, what was it, 150,000?
250,000.
250,000. He did the feature. Y'all shot the music video. The song never came out.
Yep, because he actually got locked up.
Due to the holdup on Gunna's part, Kevo felt that he needed to be properly compensated back for all the money and effort he put into the track.
Really, I want more money because I feel like all the time I wasted over a year, that was at that time type, you know?
He also argued that he deserved millions back as a refund because according to him, the song would have been a guaranteed hit.
I feel like I deserve some real M's. Who knows where the song could have been at before you messed your name up.
Alright, that's crazy. And when the interview asked him how much he wanted, Kevo wasted no time in telling him the amount.
How much do you want?
Like 5 million.
You want 5 million?
Look, this is what I'm saying. You gotta, realistically, before he got locked up, if I would have dropped the song, he would have posted it and it would have did what it did. The song, I was gonna make it go big, bro. You feel me?
Once fans saw this interview, they made fun of him even more, writing, "Him trying to finesse 250K into 5 M's is nuts," as well as, "Kevo is the goofiest man alive." And this wasn't even necessarily negative. They were honestly just laughing at the whole situation. You probably know by now that DaBaby's name constantly stirs up debates over his music and his offstage antics. However, this one's a little different because one of his latest scandals involved a hefty $20,000 payment from a 19-year-old YouTuber. The victim we're talking about is Louisiana YouTuber LaMike. If you're not familiar with LaMike's content, well, he basically makes these 20v1s where one person, usually a rapper or influencer, interacts with 20 women. On top of that, these 20v1s go insanely viral. LaMike is also the YouTuber involved in Christian Rock's 20 vs 1 video where the cameraman was robbed and given the beats on set.
And she does the same thing as Cass, and look, he took the camera. So if they try to book with somebody, they're trying to do that all the time.
However, in these 20v1s, they typically need to pay the artist or the main guy in the video, and that's where DaBaby came in. LaMike wanted to do a video with a North Carolina rapper, and for him, this wasn't just another video, it was supposed to be a breakout moment. To him, having DaBaby was peak, and having him in the video would be groundbreaking, but unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. See, in a surprising move, LaMike posted a heartfelt plea for DaBaby to return and complete the project. He claimed the video was unfinished, and that his entire career was on the line. In an Instagram video posted on April 15th, LaMike claimed he paid DaBaby $20,000 to appear in one of his videos with the caption, "I lost 20K today, heartbreak emojis, add DaBaby, ran off with the 20K I paid him for a video, I did everything I was supposed to do, please don't scam me bro, this is my livelihood." On the other hand, footage showed the rapper walking off the set, leaving LaMike stunned and helpless. But in the video, he would also reveal that the money wasn't just from his pocket, stating,
"I paid the baby $20,000 and he walked all set, bro. He walked all set, bro. I'ma be real, bro, like, I'm defeated, bro. Like, I don't know how long I could do this shit, bro."
According to Mike, a significant portion came from one of his family members who was battling cancer.
My grandma gave me $10,000 out of the $20,000, bro, because she wanted to see this video before she go, bro. She battling cancer right now, bro.
Alright, that's crazy. The YouTuber emotionally shared that his grandma wanted to see him succeed, saying,
"Bro, can y'all please tag DaBaby and tell him, please run this video back, bro. Please run a video back, bro. I put my all into this YouTube shit, bro."
But as the events played out, things didn't go as expected. So what exactly happened? Was the video concept too much for DaBaby to participate in? Well, the drama reportedly began on set during a miscommunication or altercation between DaBaby and someone from Lil Mike's team. Witnesses suggested that one of Lil Mike's collaborators said something inappropriate or provocative, which triggered the rapper.
They told me to ask that question.
Why would you suck the Fora?
You with
this?
Yeah, we got that look.
You with this?
That's what I do. I'm professional now.
Sucker, professional.
In a much clearer video, you can clearly see DaBaby heated and having an altercation with someone, which eventually led to him walking out.
Oh my.
I just delete it, bro. Just delete it. Just delete it.
But you playing like I'm a
See, DaBaby was also known for his short temper, so he didn't really take kindly to the situation.
Fast forward and kick me out the based off body because DaBaby felt pleased because he made a comment about sucking fart out of and I said, you're a sucker, fart sucker. And he felt pleased.
On the other hand, DaBaby didn't remain silent for long. The rapper replied directly to the Instagram post to address the allegations, saying, I ain't run off, I walked off, you know why too, be glad it's the way it went up and tighten up. DaBaby would then explain his side on his Instagram story, even tagging Lil Mike, saying, at Lil Mike Jr., you could've went viral the right way posting a video of me pressing your partner with them big silver shorts on. That's the type of people want to see, kid. He also dismissed Lil Mike's claims about his grandmother, labeling the story as a lie designed to garner sympathy. Quit lying on your granny and let these folks know your entourage messed your bag up. You need to get handled playing on your grandma's name. Where are your morals at? And to top things off, DaBaby said that he had other suggestions for Lil Mike's career, but I got an idea. Let me know if you want to hear it. Lil Mike, taking the bait, reposted his story saying, what's the idea, at DaBaby. Unfortunately for Mike, this was DaBaby's idea.
And now you got people playing with my name. Like I just came and just robbed you. Check this what we gonna do.
DaBaby claimed that the $20,000 was just his payment for his time and insisted that he had every right to keep it. In a twist that added only fuel to the fire, the rapper announced that he would distribute the money among the 20 women featured in the shoot.
I'm gonna take the $20,000 that you gave me for my time for that hour plus that I spent in up, and I'm gonna give $1,000 a piece to them 20 girls that you paid to let a lame like you disrespect them.
He even called them queens and said that they deserve compensation for enduring Lil Mike's antics.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get that $20,000 that you gave me. I'm gonna give it to them girls, them queens. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't need to be having no lame ass. You play with them, know it.
Despite the backlash, DaBaby stood firm, refusing to turn the money and continuing to ridicule the situation. He even turned the tables, accusing Mike of lacking morals for allegedly lying about his grandmother.
You're lying on your grandma. You're playing. You sick. You're a sick little dude. Like I said, the way people believe in that little story you made up, I can only imagine. People probably be believing this 20 verse 1.
After that, DaBaby would post on Instagram saying that he was tired of the drama, saying, case closed, ain't got nothing more to say about it. Y'all believe a guy that played on his grandma, that's on you, and whatever they want to do, let me know so I can speed it up. But for Mike, DaBaby's response felt like salt in his wounds. Not only did the rapper refuse to return the money, but he also mocked the young YouTuber's content and motives. In a follow-up post, Lil Mike expressed his disappointment, saying, you make fun of my content, bro, that's wild. At DaBaby, I really looked up to you, gang. Why you playing with me? I get you left with my 20K, but you didn't have to make fun of my content, bro, that's messed up. Making fun of a 19-year-old trying to make it out, not cool, bro. Anyways, not every rapper who scams brags about it though. Some of them never say so much as a word about it until they eventually get caught, surprising their fan base in the process. In 2020, Herbo was arrested along with several members of his crew for using stolen credit card details and IDs to pay for private jets, expensive meals, and designer puppies over the last 4 years. Imagine getting arrested for purchasing designer puppies using stolen credit cards. Well, that's what happened. According to the authorities, Herbo and his crew were able to get away with using these credit cards for so long because they were able to provide authentic payment card information, so the defrauded businesses and individuals successfully processed their transactions and provided the goods and services. All in all, the group was able to use their stolen cards to charge millions of dollars worth of services and goods over a 4-year period. To make matters worse for the Chicago rapper, he was then sentenced for participating in a nationwide wire fraud conspiracy in 2024. Speaking on Herbo and his crimes, the acting United States Attorney Joshua Levy issued the statement, on social media, Mr. White, Herbo, boasted an extravagant lifestyle. He gave the impression that his use of private jets, luxury cars, and tropical villas were the legitimate fruits of the booming rap career as Herbo. However, his lavish lifestyle was shamelessly built on deceit and fraud, using stolen account information that inflicted substantial harm on numerous businesses, leaving a wake of victims burdened with financial losses. Herbo pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and admitted that he was responsible for over $139,000 in victim losses. Some of the items and services he was able to purchase using stolen payment card information included 4 private jet charters for a total cost of $80,000, over $34,000 in exotic car rentals, including a Mercedes-Benz and a Cadillac Escalade, and over $14,500 for a villa rental in Jamaica. This just proves that scam rappers aren't the only ones capable of committing crimes like this, and that some of the biggest scammers in hip-hop aren't the ones who even rap about it. Unlike Herbo though, who mostly scam businesses using stolen credit cards, the next rapper we'll talk about scammed his fans directly by appealing to their kindness. And I'll leave it to you to determine which one is worse. So let's talk about Fora. Fora is a rapper from California who was able to amass a dedicated fan base on his own by staying independent. He wanted to make it to the music industry without the backing of a major studio.
We have no big record labels backing us. We have no distribution putting our music out. We have no investors. It's just us, releasing our own music, doing it ourselves. And that's how it's always been, and that's how we plan on keeping it.
So he thought it would be a good idea to create a Kickstarter campaign where his fans could help him fund his own record label.
We want the fans to be our record label. We want y'all to give us the opportunity to stay us, to make the music we want to make, create what we want to create, without any record label telling us to change what we sound like or change our image or change what we stand for. You know, it's not who we are.
In all fairness to Fora, this was a great idea on paper. Given that he was a relatively successful indie rapper who had some serious fans backing him, why not allow them to chip in, and in return, maybe give them something back by starting a Kickstarter campaign. With that, Fora ran the campaign, which went on from June 1st to July 3rd, 2015. According to his Kickstarter page, the money would fund nationwide tours, new clothing designs, promotion, new music, studio equipment, tour bus, album production, disc manufacturing, and other matters that his label and his career would need to survive. As a token of his appreciation, Fora said that those who would pledge this campaign would be granted live video chats and thank you phone calls to private visits, lifetime VIP memberships, album downloads, and exclusive limited edition clothing that will never be available to the public. Fora also assured his fans that if the campaign were to fail, everyone who donated would get their money back. So Fora's fans ended up agreeing that this was a good idea because in 32 days, he was able to garner 635 backers and was able to receive over $65,000 over his pledged goal of $60,000. So it looks like the campaign was a complete success after all, and it was. But Fora's record label never came to fruition. In fact, 2 years after the Kickstarter campaign ended, Fora did something that went completely against the purpose of the whole thing. He signed with Warner, a major record label. So what happened? Did the fans who donated to Fora get their rewards? No. The comment section of the Kickstarter is filled with fans who are asking for updates. There are a few who claim they got their package, but a vast majority of fans claim to have not received anything yet, including one fan who claimed to have donated $2,750. And although he did reach his goal, he never funded and started his label. So what happened to the $65,000 exactly? Well, no refunds happened, so it's safe to say that Fora just used all that money for himself. However, that wasn't the only time Fora scammed his fans, because on top of being a rapper, Fora also runs a fairly successful clothing brand. It was so successful that Forbes magazine did a piece on him in 2017 for being the newest multi-million-dollar millennial. According to Forbes, Fora's Your Truly clothing brand brought in over $2.2 million in revenue during their 24-hour Black Friday sale, moving over 30,000 orders at $76 per, and padding the company's monthly revenue stream of $100,000 to $150,000. That said, in the coming years, his clothing brand was also bombarded with negative reviews after many people who purchased from him reported to have never received their items. Looking at the clothing brand's business profile on Better Business Bureau, you'll find that it has an FBBB rating and accreditation. Similar to his Kickstarter campaign back in 2015, you'll see the comments here are filled with people complaining for not receiving the things they paid for. One commenter wrote, "I purchased 4 items on November 24th of 2023. It has been 7 months and I've received no updates. I DM'd the company and the owner, but I've gotten no response. I would have liked to receive my items, but if they're not going to respond or send them, I like my money back." And there are 5 more pages of comments on the business profile that share this very same sentiment. If that wasn't enough, Fora has also done multiple giveaways, and as you can probably guess by now, those winners have not yet received their rewards. And when Fora finally addressed the issues with his clothing brand, he made a comment that may sound like he was taking responsibility, but in truth, he was just implying that the fault lay on the people he did business with, and that he was only taking responsibility for their mistakes because he was the face of the brand.
At the end of the day, I'm the public, I'm the guy, you know? Yeah. No one knows anybody else on it. Yeah. I'm the guy, so some up shit happens, it's on you. Falls on me. And what am I gonna do? Blame people, point the finger for then I'm just gonna look like I'm running away from responsibility. I made the choice to do business with these people. I made a choice to do business with.
However, not all scams in hip-hop are done on that scale. Some are smaller, taking this form of street hustlers, and if you walked around Times Square in New York, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you don't, then you should definitely watch out for these guys. You walk around Times Square looking like an obvious tourist, whether from your appearance, how you talk, or how you dress, you are highly likely to get approached by hustlers who will do their best to get as much money out of you. Here's how it works. One of these groups of hustlers pretends to be an up-and-coming rapper, and they'll approach you and hand you a quote-unquote free CD.
My album, all original. I do reggae and hip-hop. Where you from? Where you from?
Sorry, I'm not interested.
What's your name, sir?
Once you acknowledge them, they'll then tell you that the CD is free, and you are encouraged to offer a donation to these aspiring artists.
Thank you, Ken. We don't sell it, Ken. We just ask for a donation for the record, Ken. Thank you.
This particular fake rapper even autographed his copy, because you know, his signature is that valuable.
I'm gonna give you a big autograph, Ken.
All right, sure.
To Ken, that's my autograph right there, Ken.
So when the tourist refuses to pay anything, the rapper gets pissed off because he already gave him his autograph.
I'm sorry.
No, I autographed it already. I give you change, whatever you need, bro. Thank you.
I don't want it. I'm fine.
Ken, I need something for the album.
I'm all right. Thanks, man.
Now you might be asking, who the hell sells CDs these days? Who has CD players anymore? Well, these scammers thought of that too, because the cover of their CDs also come with QR codes you can just scan, which will take you to their artist profile on a streaming platform.
But who's got a CD player, man, honestly?
We have QR codes if you don't have
is
CD
it?
player.
Oh, let me see.
We're smart black guys.
Hey, look at that. It's a QR code now. Amazing, man, amazing.
Yeah.
So what happens if you don't give them any money? Well, they just apply pressure to the point of harassment until you cave. But while getting scammed in the streets of New York is definitely something to watch out for, you also need to be cautious of impersonators who try to pass themselves off as famous rappers and artists. See, some scammers online tend to reach out to fans after creating a fake profile, asking them for money or to offer discounts for a feature. Although it's pretty obvious to spot a poser on social media, especially one pretending to be a famous rapper, some fans aren't exactly that tech savvy and end up becoming victims to these remorseless scammers. And of course, sometimes it's actually just the rapper themselves. Just like that time when scammers used a disability to try and trick fans into sending them money for a noble cause. These horrible scammers did this by pretending to be Cardi B. And if you're wondering why they choose to impersonate her, well, in 2019, she had a crazy run, winning the Grammy Award for Best Rap Album for her debut album Invasion of Privacy, and becoming the first solo female rapper to win in that category. Not only that, she also took home Album of the Year at the BET Awards. And to top it all off, Cardi B racked up over 21 nominations in the Billboard charts, which made her one of the biggest names in the industry. And that kind of star power carried enough weight to make a fake donation scam seem convincingly enough to trick people into handing over their money. She later uploaded an image of the email on her Instagram profile, and it was despicable. Thank you for the love and support you showed me. It's been a wonderful year. Having fans solidly behind this is my way of saying thank you to the people who have brought me this far. I hope you never stop listening to my music. The scammer also added, "You are very nice, beautiful, and you seem to be a very nice person. Do you have a big heart?" And here's where it gets wild, because the scammer claimed that Cardi was allegedly raising $30 million for autism research. Quite odd for a female rapper, but I guess some people believed it. And although the fake email was filled with typos, punctuation errors, and other grammatical flaws, having Cardi's name attached to it might have fooled some fans into giving away their hard-earned money to a fake cause. Rightfully so, he was infuriated at the attempt to extort her fans, writing, "This shit is fake donation shit. You're wild, disgusting, taking advantage of real kind people who want to make a change but just scamming. If it don't come from my mouth, don't believe it." But honestly, it's a good thing that she caught this pretty soon, because if she hadn't cleared the air, the scammer might have pocketed way more money using her name. And just like that one time when a Bow Wow impersonator managed to finesse someone out of $3,000 for a fake verse. The scam got even more twisted since the victim was apparently a young girl who just wanted to rap and have a Bow Wow feature on a song. After the scammer tricked the girl and her family into sending money for the verse, it was already too late. See, their biggest mistake was not realizing they were getting catfished, because once the money was sent, the scammer disappeared without a trace, leaving thousands of dollars in his pocket. However, in the eyes of victims, it was Bow Wow himself who was guilty of the crime. So they ended up filing a case against him, asking the rapper for $15,000 in damages. Based on the foregoing and as a direct consequence of the defendant's actions and failures, plaintiff's total damages, including costs and attorney fees, amount to $15,000, the court document states. For some reason, they still hadn't realized they were getting finessed and actually believed a rapper with 12 Billboard charting singles and 10 million records sold in his career was the one behind the scam. Fully believing that Bow Wow ran off with their money, they filed a lawsuit against them for allegedly scamming them out of $15,000. In response, the real Bow Wow took to Twitter and wrote, "I don't conduct business on apps. I do not use or have Cash App. So if you ain't call management or send a wire, you definitely not dealing with me. Be careful who y'all send y'all money to online. This happens every day to folks. This is the third time somebody acting like me catfishing people. Although he claimed the scammers pretending to be him were fairly common, he doesn't exactly have the best reputation when it comes to money either. Furthermore, shortly after the lawsuit was filed against him, he had another problem. See, another rapper named Rich Behavior came out and accused him of allegedly scamming her out of a verse even after she allegedly paid for it. But here's the kicker. This rapper had receipts to show fans that she was in fact talking to the real Bow Wow. At first, he explained to her how he was going to quote-unquote promote the song by telling her that he was going to make an intro for it and promote it on Instagram Live with all of his fans. Next, he asked the rapper for her number as well as $2,500 to be sent to his Cash App. Unfortunately for Rich, after she sent him the money, she never got a response, even after she pleaded for him to return the money back. Despite fans blaming Rich Behavior for deciding to feature Bow Wow in this day and age, writing, "Who features Bow Wow or anything in the first place? That was her first mistake." Of course, that still doesn't excuse him for finessing a small-time rapper like that. But while Bow Wow may or may not have been scamming other artists who, surprisingly, still want a feature from him in the modern day, others are far more overt with their scams, choosing to target indie rappers and artists. One prominent example of this was when a company known as the Block 365 saw an opportunity to take advantage of the hopes and dreams of aspiring rappers. In 2020, this company worked with several notable rap artists, all of whom who are still fairly reputable, but no longer at the peak of their careers. Still respected, but kind of washed. Some of these rappers they ended up working with were Fat Joe, Benny the Butcher, Datakiss, and Dave East. These rappers would then post to social media, asking their followers to tag indie artists. Here's one example of Fat Joe asking his followers to tag an artist that spits crack only. Once they had a sizable number of mentions, the Block 365 would then start messaging the artists that got tagged by people using the rapper's actual accounts. Of course, the artists they messaged had no idea they were speaking to a company representative and not the rapper themselves. Here's one example of Fat Joe messaging an aspiring artist. "I see you, brother. I'm working with the Block 365 to drop a series of tapes. You ready to get to work and push your music?" And when the indie artist said yes, Fat Joe, or the Block 365, speaking through Fat Joe, said, "Man, let's get you on. Send me your dopest track, $650 a slot. Let's lock you in, then we talk bigger moves. You ready to get on?" So that's how this whole thing worked. The Block 365 used these rappers' names to establish credibility. Using their social media accounts, they urged fans to tag indie artists, which the company then messaged using the rapper's social media account. Through these accounts, they told indie and aspiring artists to pay around $500 to $650 to be on their next mixtape. Many of these aspiring artists agreed to their offer. Some of them thought the exposure would be good for them, and others were just excited that a rapper they've looked up to even bothered to reach out to them to ask about a mixtape placement. "Dave East has hit my DM trying to put me on a mixtape. I think I'm finally gonna get some of the recognition I deserve," said one fan. Another who received a message from Benny the Butcher said, "I can't even believe Benny the Butcher is in my DM networking with me. What a blessing." And then, a few months later, the Block 365 released Rap Behind Bars Volume 7, presented by Benny the Butcher on SoundCloud. The mixtape consisted of 37 tracks, and the average play count for the entire tape is 60. So these indie rappers spend $500 to $650 just to garner hardly a couple hundred plays, which is crazy if you ask me. Another rapper who's guilty for scamming his own fans and other up-and-coming artists is none other than Young Banz. See, Banz was a prolific rapper during the SoundCloud era. He had 5 music videos uploaded on Lyrical Lemonade, raking in millions of views in the process. However, his biggest hit was released in December of 2017, titled Lonely, featuring Lil Skies. In fact, the song was so successful that it earned a gold certification from RIAA. But today, he slowly faded into obscurity, and one of the things that have gained a lot of attention was the time he scammed fans for music. You see, one day, a fan asked him if he was down to collab and send a pay verse. Afterwards, Banz replied saying, "Of course bro, I'll send a verse to your email. Before we start, PayPal me on this address, paypal.me/YoungBanz." However, he followed up with a message urging the fan to send it through friends and family instead of the usual goods and services option. That alone should have been a red flag, as scammers often use this method to dodge fees and ensure the transaction goes without protection. Of course, the fan never got the verse and was scammed. Sadly, this fan wasn't the only victim of Young Banz scamming, since one fan wrote, "Bro scammed a lot of people for 2K, plus he used the same verse for everybody that he scammed." And as for the victim, it gets much, much worse. See, he reached out to PayPal's customer support and asked them for help after getting scammed. However, here's the kicker. According to PayPal's Terms of Service, or TOS, you can't have a PayPal account if you're under the age of 18, which the fan clearly wasn't. As a result, PayPal quickly terminated his account. But what about the money Young Banz scammed him out of? Well, PayPal informed him that their records showed that Banz had already transferred the funds to his bank account, which meant that there was no way to get it back. However, rappers aren't the only ones guilty of quote-unquote finessing others. Sometimes, the ones behind the records are just as culpable as them. Just like that one time when Lil Uzi Vert's record label Generation Now, specifically DJ Drama and Don Cannon, allegedly scammed rapper Adam Killa for $20,000. Now, if you frequently scroll TikTok, chances are you might come across this rapper who typically starts off his videos like,
"If your name starts with the letter A, this is for you."
Although he's more of a TikToker nowadays, Adam Killa was once a pioneer in his own lane of rap in the underground scene. His song I Dare racked up 1 million views on WorldStar, and he often collaborated with artists like Young Lean, Tybo Digital, and Blade. But compared to mainstream artists, he was still a small, up-and-coming underground rapper trying to make a name for himself. So he reached out to DJ Drama and Don Cannon to negotiate a Lil Uzi Vert feature. And here's the messed up part. Instead of getting an Uzi verse for his song Cheerio, he ended up getting finessed. But not completely, because Uzi did do his verse. There's just a catch. See, Adam Killa aired out his concerns on Instagram, writing, "And it ain't get cleared because I paid 20K for Uzi, then Don Cannon and DJ Drama wanted 50 to clear it, and I didn't have that, so they wouldn't clear it. After he initially sent the $20,000 payment, they apparently requested $50,000 more from him. Adam Killa claimed that was extortion. So Adam felt angry because he felt that Generation Now basically stole his money for nothing. Not only did he lash out on them, he also voiced his frustrations at Lil Uzi. And Uzi wasn't no help. I waited a year, then I just said screw it and put it out. Unfortunately, it gets way worse for him. See, the money that he spent for the feature was apparently all that he had. I used my savings on that Uzi feature with my baby on the way. Tyler was 7 months pregnant, and I used all my savings on the song, couldn't even get cleared. That was my last straw for music, 20K down the drain. So he gambled the last of his savings in hopes of securing an Uzi feature to boost his career, but that feature never came. So the fans took his defense. Moving on, I'd like you to meet DOMD, a rapper with a pretty odd name to say the least, and although he never had much success on the music side of things commercially, he was still a well-known name within the underground rap scene, in spite of his egregious name. But here's the deal. He was such a frequent scammer, someone went out of their way to create an Instagram profile named DOMD Scammer to give fans an outlet to expose his shady behavior. The craziest part, his rap career itself was a bit of a scam. In fact, one post on the Instagram account even showed a screenshot of him openly admitting to buying SoundCloud views just to pad his numbers. Gang, you gotta buy some views, like I did on SoundCloud, fake it till you make it. It gets worse, because not only was he running scams, but his entire crew was also guilty of ripping off their own fanbase. Here's a conversion between two fans who were scammed out of a hoodie and a feature. Unfortunately for them, they fell for the classic trap of sending money through PayPal's. Friends and family option, which meant that their money was as good as gone. The funny thing is, he wasn't even trying to cover his tracks. Being a scammer was basically part of his whole persona. Another example of this was when a fan asked him for lyrics to own his song, writing, "Sup, can you give me lyrics of Bean?" To which he replied, "You got Cash App? PayPal?" The fan was left so baffled that he had to ask him again if he was just asking for money just to send lyrics. Not a feature, not a shout out, or anything, just lyrics to his own song. So you give lyrics for money, right? Yes, lol. Anyways, the moment someone falls for his scam and sends him money, he wastes no time, immediately blocking them as soon as the money arrives in his account. The funny part is he actually has fans defending him, saying that his tendency to scam fans is due to him being a rapper. LMAO, bro, a rapper, what do you expect? You just salty. Which is a pretty bad way to justify his actions, but hey.